Good morning. The absolute Dunkelflater continues. This is about the fourth or fifth day, no wind. Murra is putting out around about 9 megawatts of its 429 nameplate capacity. This is absurd. This is owned by Squadron Energy. Squadron Energy is run by the biggest capitalist crook in Australia, Twiggy Forrest. He's employed as his consultant the lower than a snake person, Daniel Andrews. He is absolutely working for the Chinese, the Iranians and North Korea. This guy is not an Australian. He has had his thugs and other people doing his business for him. He's got his snout well and truly in the Australian taxpayer trough. And this is not good. We're taxing small businesses, young families, workers of Australia, so that the guaranteed profits can flow to Twiggy Forrest fat profit pockets. It's not fair, it's not right. Young Australians should be able to buy a home, not multi-billionaires getting fatter hip pockets out of government payments. This is wrong, totally wrong. Billions, tens of billions is flowing into Twiggy Forrest pockets. How much government support is going into Murra? How much money are we, the taxpayers, paying to produce 9 megawatts out of 429? We absolutely must know. Transparency is important. Then I read in the Financial Review an article about the renewable dud projects, Labor's renewable dud projects. 59 projects and only 13 have reached financial close. 13. That's 20%, roughly 20% of those projects. I think wind projects, the cost of building them is going up, less and less likely to occur. I just think taxpayers are on a hiding to nothing, and we're going to get a renewable build which is not going to provide any energy. The only people benefiting out of it are the useless fat cat capitalist pigs that own it. Westwind, Cubico, Squadron Energy, all terrible. They are absolutely implicit with this corrupt, criminal Labor government. Then I see the lower than the snake's belly, Daniel Andrews, having dinner with the Prime Minister. And we're going to put all the federal projects on the same arrangement that's in Victoria. Well, this is CFMEU corruption. This is absolute disaster for the Australian economy. Why would people in New South Wales, Queensland, Western Australia want the same terrible economic performance as Victoria? This is a terrible situation. It's Ross Johns here from the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Enjoy your day.
I'm shocked, Ross. You must have had a bad night last night. It's incredible. Give it to him, baby. But that's the voice of rural Victoria. I don't want to cross him. Anyway, a very good morning. I've got a bit of a husk voice today. Don't know why. Lungs are a bit heavy. Maybe it's climate change. Anyway, before we get into our guest, looking at some of the news that's making news around Australia. Victoria's 56,965 hunters. I have to ask, why would someone want to kill an animal? Anyway, it's just me. 452,606 boat licence holders. I mean, who catches fish? I can't. And maybe go to the supermarket and buy one. That's the closest thing I can do. And 245,147 anglers. There's another one. Good luck catching that fish. Got away that time. They hold enormous political clout at their November 28th state election, with thousands of them sitting in key marginal electorates. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting election, isn't it? If Labor gets back in, if I was the LMP, I would go and work at Luna Park. You know, like those dolls, those ones. That's what you need to do, because if you can't win this one, you'll never win, ever, ever, ever. Outgoing New South Wales Farmers President Xavier Martin has pleaded with farmers to be on guard and urged them to protect the ability to be their own boss as he passed the baton to his successor, Moree farmer Rebecca Reardon. One of Australia's largest free-range broiler chicken farms, with capacity for almost 1 million birds, has sold to a poultry shed manufacturer. It wasn't a poultry deal, it was a big one, and private investors in a deal expected to be worth tens of millions of dollars. Sorry, I got a bit scrambled with that one. Oh, what a bad day for you. I'm on fire. See what happens when you're not well? Now, more than 3,000 visitors descended on the tiny outback Queensland town of Boulia. That's right. It sounds like they're from Fiji. Boulia. No, Boulia. It's outback Queensland, magnificent part of the world, for Australia's richest camel racing festival. That was providing a welcome boost to communities recovering from widespread flooding earlier this year. How fantastic is that? Would you like one hump or two humps? Actually, we only have, I think, one hump camels here. Might be a couple of two humps around, but and who's counting? But there, anyway, so if you want to find out more about what's happening around Australia, all over Australia, regional, rural and outback, outback's very important. As my next guest is going, what the hell has he been smoking? Just keep it on the Country Telegraph, either on X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook. We're live at the moment as he coughs himself to death in the background, sounds like me before. Or you can watch the replays later on. And by the way, we have a new app coming out very shortly, new functionality. And it will improve dramatically. So thank you. This is the Country Telegraph. Still like that music. Better change it though, otherwise I'll get picked on at the dinner table. Actually, not at the dinner table. I mean, we don't have the dinner table. It becomes an office table, and for our 432 cats, they sit on that office table. We sit, you get your meal, put it on your lap, watch TV, say hello to the missus if you have to, say hello to the cats, you must. Isn't that terrible? Instant Polls is our official sponsor. If you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff and gather valuable data from your most important resource, your employees. Now you can visit Instantpolls.online to learn more about that, which is a magnificent tool. It just helps your business get better. Now, today's poll on the Country Telegraph is, in what areas do you think the government interferes the most? Okay, so if you go to that, you can ask that. Now, if you want to do it right now, you'll see on my right-hand side the QR code. What you do is just scan it, get your phone up there and make it work. It doesn't work on rotary phones, by the way. Each vote is secure and anonymous. and verified by 2FA. You have 24 hours to vote before the result is broadcast on the Country Telegraph after 8 a.m. tomorrow. Now, the link will also be published on our Off Your Facebook page after 6 a.m. Share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. It's just a bit of fun, but also gives you a bit of a voice, which it's anonymous, and the country gets an idea in which direction it's going. So it's absolutely fantastic. This is the Country Telegraph.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that, he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So yeah, sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
Interesting, isn't it? The National Parks and Wildlife Service, which I think is appalling. They are appalling. I don't give a rat's what anyone says. The Kosciuszko National Park. Let's go a-hunting. We'll go and kill all those horses. Oh, bugger. We didn't get enough. What about 1080? Oh, tell me more about that. Well, what we'll do is we'll put it in carrots and we'll say it's for rabbits. And we'll drop those carrots all over the place, probably from helicopters, killing one day, a poison delivery the next. Drop it down, and then we'll get those really big rabbits. That's what we do. We're going to get those big rabbits. We're going to kill them all. Because if we go after those people will get very angry at us. You pack of, excuse me, I'm just losing my voice. You're a pack of bastards. That's what you are. By the way, we are going to do everything. I mean, not we, me, or Jen, or my wife, or Cam. The entire community is going to do everything it can to obliterate. You're a pack of bastards, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and you are despicable creatures. Why would you ever want to do what you're doing to an animal? Forget if it's a horse. It's just you're a bunch of sickos. That's what I think anyway. Off script a bit here, but truly you're just despicable. So if you can't shoot them, you're going to poison them. Oh, it was meant for the rabbit. pack of bastards. Anyway, it's my little my rant, and you should be blessed that I have a bit of a hoarse voice, something like that. Berhnard Hoffman has just gone and got himself some lozenges. Thanks, mate. I could do with one. He's a practicing permaculturist who is in the process of developing in Jindabyne, a research farm and demonstration site for all aspects of landscape regeneration. He is self-funding the farm development through his own work of consulting, designing and implementing the watershed first, agroforestry second, and integrating grazing as a third focus, with all three phases coming together as the core pillars of increasing carrying capacity and building landscape resilience and high dynamic equilibriums as a primary forest once did. So it's pretty interesting to say the least. First of all, Caleb, thanks for joining us.
Matt, I'm very happy to be here.
Where's my lozenge? You popped it and got
It's a couple of butter menthols. I'll toss it.
Virgin.
I'll lob it over.
Hang on, my gob's open. Look, it's a pleasure having you here. Look, can you just tell me about your business? Just abbreviated, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is Contoured Land Services, is the name I've landed upon. We offer a lot of design and consultation work, some which unfortunately also leads to implementation as well, which is the fun part. And we look at lifting carrying capacity across landscape for primary producers, for, you know, landowners who just care and understand that they have stepped into what is stewardship of a landscape. And we go very much from a top-down approach as far as the hierarchy of needs within landscape function. And we look as holistically as we can at the landscape, at its previous functions, and then we try to reinstate that as best we can to, like I said, increase carrying capacity and build resilience within the landscape.
What's the process? Can it be done in bits and pieces, in phases, or does it have to be all part of a probably scientific or more organised approach?
So it depends is always the answer with all of these things. Ideally, you're coming in and you're going through the stages as you can in short of order as possible, because it's so important to have the water in place, which is the landscape rehydration aspect of it. Then to have the water in place and not also then be adding the diversity is a small delay in total positive outcome. Look, when you have the water in place, when you rehydrate the landscape, you will actually find that a lot of the seed bank that was there originally is going to start reappearing because it now has the water it needs to do so. But some of that regeneration will be within a delayed aspect of that, or will be in a delay. Whereas if you can come in and also at the same time plant in the diversity that you wish to see for the production that you wish to do, it definitely happens much faster. But you can do anything at any time for any reason as long as you're following the guiding principles, and you will still see a positive outcome.
We spoke to Peter Andrew yesterday, and OAM, and he was just fantastic. Can you tell me your reception from more traditional, the stuff that can bastardize the environment or the soil itself? What's the government's approach, or local, state, or federal government's approach to what you're doing?
Well, there's definitely no help. Assistance is pretty nil, as we can all imagine. We don't need any nannying, so the state doesn't care much other than to look unintentionally, but still be prohibitive at the state level, especially when it comes to the watershed restoration work. A lot of times we're dealing with streams that now, in today's day, is a third order stream, and therefore we can't touch. But you can go look at the oldest satellite images we have and see that it was very quite recently just a second order stream, or very quite recently even just a first order stream, and it's just because of degradation of the watershed that it's now worked its way into an order of stream that we can't work on. Even though we very well have evidence that it wasn't always that way, and that this is actually active degeneration of the landscape.
How did we get to this stage? Because I mean, I'm from the land, and in my days we just had horses. No, actually we did. We didn't have just horses. We had tractors and everything, so we were pretty modern. But it was and Dad was very efficient, and the people in the area were very efficient. They would follow the guidelines. Use this, use that, use Roundup. Forget about the glyphosates and the paraquat. Use all that stuff. It's really good for you. How do we get to that stage? Because what you're doing, not only is it common sense, not only is it respect for the land, it's something that works. And yet they tried other methods. And at the end of the day, from all reports, and we've been covering this for quite some time, the yield is simply magnificent, and it's not an inhibitor. You can actually make money from this too, as from your property and your land holdings. How do we get to this? Why do we bypass what nature has given us that was already there?
Well, there's the really tiny detail of hubris and ego, and all these things that are propped up to the highest degree they can be within this culture and society that pretty much just tells us, and not necessarily incorrectly in one facet, but in the general sense, the fact that we are, masters of the domain and that we can do as we wish, which we could if we were aligned with ecological laws, had an understanding of what, it takes to increase carrying capacity over time. But that's not where our culture is focused. We've come from, a large percentage of Australians have come from an island that's quite wet and needs to be actively drained to be habitable. But we're not on the English islands anymore. We're in a landscape that's started out quite dry, and only by the growth and active ecological management of living systems has it even retained. And this is actually something that Peter Andrews told me many years ago, that if it wasn't for the plants of Australia over the however many millions, nearly billion year it is, Australia would have already been in the sea. We would have been in some deep underground, deep underwater rift already. There wouldn't be any Australia, because it would have, if it was eroding in the same degree that it's eroding now, it would have been gone millions of years ago.
Interesting. I could have said, what a lovely set of gills you have, and you would have slapped me with your fin. And in your case, being from, I think you're from Norway, the fin could have been your neighbour anyway. So I'm just thinking the government, because you are right, and Peter is right, and Peter, he should have achieved a lot more, not because of what he's doing, but because of the resistance from the bureaucrats. You're from overseas, even though you're a dinky-die Australian with a slight twang. Tell me, are you surprised at how much oomph and how and I'm not going to say corrupt at all, because that's a loose word, but how influenced it is by companies with a lot of money? And if you have something that's in opposition to what they're saying, as my dad used to find out, that they would want to shut you down. Whereas in other parts of the world, they embrace new ideas, which in your case and everybody and Peter's case are really old ideas and ideas that actually work.
Yeah. Look, you definitely notice it. I notice quite a few. I've taken a full step away from the social media and the online aspect of it because it's very obviously a controlled institution. And I've noticed in quite a few people that I've contacted or have chatted with who have quite a bit of leverage and quite a bit of goodwill behind them, pretty actively being shadow banned and pretty actively being stifled in many different ways. And these are not radicals. These are not people who have shaved their heads and are yelling, kill whoever. These are wholesome people who are sharing what essentially is gardening content that's just good, that's also good for the soul because it teaches us how to reinstate being actually humans again with interactions with our ecological systems that surround us, as we have since we were, as we would have had to have been to not die since the start of our species, since after we were Neanderthals and while we were sapiens. I see that quite often, and I think most people would be pretty hard up to not see the stifling by institution, and the stifling by government, etc.
I'm going to ask you this question because we were just in Jindabyne last week, all over actually the snowies, and with thanks to Peter Cochrane, who lent me his vehicle, which goes through 32 gallons of fuel every kilometre. But I have a small car. He had this big one. Man, it was very, very, very nice of him too. But the idea of pulling a pump behind me wasn't much idea at all. A good idea. But I was just thinking, because the large animals, in the Kosciuszko National Park's case, it's the horses, bloody horses, too big, and they walk in trails. I mean, they've been there for 200 years, so they are part of the environment. Can large animals be a great help in conservation and land management, in your opinion?
100%. Any facet of a living system in management it can be an integral part of ecological health. It's really quite important not to glaze this over because it starts pointing to the heart of the nuance in this issue, in this situation. Nothing's 100% bad. The line of good and evil divides every man. Every soul on this planet has that within them. When it comes down to ecological management, we just have to be looking at how they can best serve the ecology, how they are currently interacting with said ecology, and figure out how that can be modified and managed in a way that is beneficial. The only thing that's definitively damaging for Kosciuszko is snowy hydro too. No head race tunnel's ever going to do a damn good thing about landscape rehydration. It will always be draining subsoil away to the bottom of that tunnel floor and out to some dam where it's just going to evaporate because we're a semi-arid landscape. We will always be evaporation over precipitation. And the more surface area water we have open, the more we're going to lose. It's really just as simple as that. It's basic science.
Yeah, I'm into the into a bad way with the National Parks and Wildlife Service because I always thought they were there to look after the living critters, big or small, creatures big or great or small, in the park. They're not. I don't care what anyone says, they are not, and they're now dropping carrots laced with 1080. And then and I know, I'm not going to go into a whole lot what it does to an animal, but it's a terrible, terrible death. And
it's a slow dehydration. It's a slow, horrid dehydration.
Yep. And we had a clip, we've played a clip before, which we're going to play quite often, which we put here with our production team. And at the end of it, there's this dialogue from this. You just hear this person saying it's poisonous, it's inhumane, blah, blah, terrible, terrible death. Nothing humane about it. That's an RSPCA employee. And yet the RSPCA, and I'm getting off track here, the RSPCA is doing absolutely nothing at the moment. They're just sitting back saying, well, it's out of our hands. They're there to protect these poor buggers that are being targeted, whether they're, as they say, for the rabbits or for the horses, because they can't kill enough. So they're going to give them this poison, which the horse is going to eat it. If you have the rabbit that eats the carrot, oh, yum, yum, falls over, clunk. The birds that will take the rabbit or catch the rabbit and take those away will also clunk. It will just fall off the perch, as we would say.
It's even worse than that. It's even worse than that, if I may, on this
please.
beautiful Wednesday morning. It's even worse than that. Through the mechanisms of sodium hexafluoride and the way that it works on the internal system, it essentially stops all water uptake through the living system. So the animal has an incredibly deep sense of dehydration and will go towards water supplies. They found this out in New Zealand. This is not new news. In New Zealand, they were ending up with these essentially small creek dams just filled with possums that would go down to the water to try to alleviate their system, and they would end up dying in the watershed itself, in the creek bottom. And sodium 1080 is water soluble. So not only water soluble, its toxicity, once becoming soluble, increases by an order of magnitude. I don't forget off the top of my head now because it's been a few years, but an order of magnitude is so high that the kill that would happen in that waterway, anywhere downstream of that waterway now, is incredible, an incredible loss of life. And that's coming into our own drinking supply. That's not just to mention the cruelty of it all. That's coming in. That's ending up in our tap water. What we're doing it to ourselves as well. That's the thing that everybody needs to realize.
And it's interesting. I mean, I think we have a magnificent country here. You probably do too, because you're here and you're being polite. But we do have a slight. Slight case of don't show me. And I don't want to see that. Like with the horses, we're trying to get to just a general populace to say this is not how you treat descendants of heroes, of animals who are very intelligent, that fought with us in the wars, and those that helped make this country a great country. And what they do is they turn away, and as they're turning away, they get a glimpse of a headline put out by for example, New South Wales government, or Chris Bowen, or the ISC, Invasive Species Council, and they think, oh, I won't look at it, but it's for the good of Australia. And I don't know how we can break that mold. Maybe Robbie Barwick, who's coming up next, and how we can break that mold and get people to be less apathetic, I suppose, less interested, get them to become more interested in what's happening in their own backyard, because we need to recognise, I think anyway, that the horses and the raptors and the animals, the birds that are killed because of the turbines and stuff, it's not at any cost that we are going to save the planet. In doing so, we're going to destroy it. And I don't know how we're going to get through that. You're an international person from the land of the great fjords. I mean, how would the Vikings do it besides hitting them on the head? I don't know. It's just, I don't know how we're going to do it, but I think what you're doing is magnificent. And I do believe it's a future of the global community. I think we actually have no choice, because if we keep going down the path we are, it will end in tears, as we would say. Caleb, if somebody wants to find out more about what you do, or take an interest, or share a good carrot with you, not a bad carrot, how do they do that?
So I've got a website, contouredland.com.au. It's still pretty young. It doesn't have much on it, but it does have my contacts. And I will be putting up a few projects as I can. I've completely stepped away from all social media
Good
because
idea.
it's clearly not the solution. As much as I do love seeing puppy photos, it's not worth it.
I like cat photos too. I mean, cat
Look,
and anything to do with an animal, good. It just gets the views, and I could have an interview with God, or Robbie Barwick, who's up there with him anyway. And people won't notice you, but when you have a cat, so Robbie, go and get your pet cat now. When you have a cat, man, oh man, it gets millions, doesn't it?
they just love it.
And puppy ones too. Look, Caleb, it was great chatting with you. I do appreciate it very much, and would like to do more of these. And next time we're in the snowy, and we'll be there a few times this year, would love to pop in and maybe do a bit of a chat with you, do a show from there, and just look at what you're doing. And that would be, and also visit Peter, of course, because he's a pioneer in basically saving Australia. And you both are doing a magnificent job. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. It was nice to chat, Mike.
By the way, just for those, because we're on the Gold Coast where it's drizzly, but it's about 20. What's your temperature right now? Is it minus 20 or 30?
No, it's unseasonably warm. It would be above freezing outside,
Yes.
if only just. If
But
only just it is.
you're from
Which
the
is,
land of the Great Ice Block. I mean, it's always cold there.
yeah. A negative 30 is what I would see as an average growing up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold. I mean, that's cold. Caleb, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
It's pretty disturbing to be on the back of a horse riding through a national park and just coming across carnage. That's what we're here for, but certainly families and tourists don't want to be seeing that. Shame on you.
My heart grows quiet as bullets ring.
It's grisly.
I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to
Let's go
roam,
away from that.
more sunrises with my Casio.
Oh my God, there's more.
Before the mountains call me home. Tell them I was born here. My grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my fool I tried to save them. Tell the wind how brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.
Ashley Avis, truly a magnificent person, and thank you, Ashley. And as a gentleman, I use that word gentleman loosely, suggested we don't need the bloody yank here. Go and shove your head up your ass, mate. That's what I reckon. Poor Robbie's just come into another barrage, but it is a Wednesday. It's a hump day of the week. A headline this week, Australia lures billions into natural capital. Global investors are pouring billions into sustainable farming, forestry and carbon. But industry insiders are divided about whether the cash is supporting genuine regenerative projects. Are these investments beneficial for Australia or overseas investors? Are we replacing productive land for less productive uses? To discuss this, we're joined by Robert Barwick, National Chairman of the Australian Citizens Party, And Robert is the party's media spokesman and resident sex symbol, contributing to the Australian Alert magazine and presenter of the weekly show, The Citizen Report. Robbie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Good to be here, Mike.
Tell me your thoughts on, just before we get into it, because you understand how politics work. The ISC is 100, which is Invasive Species Council, have 130 members. Yet they wield a huge amount of power with the New South Wales government because Jack Goff is a former lobbyist. How strong? Because you understand this. How strong are, or how much power do they possess, the lobbyists, when it comes to politics and policy making?
Oh, they possess enormous power. In this instance, there's a green fashion in politics that has been there for a long time. There's been an obsession with environmentalism and ecologism, and politicians who are not experts in any way. They see that that's the vibe, that's the zeitgeist, right? We've got to be in tune in harmony with nature, but nature is defined in a certain way, and so that gives, because the politicians make that assumption and feel that they've got to be seen to be on the side of that. That gives a particular lobby, such as the one you're referring to, even more power than they otherwise would have, right? They can use that kind of thing as leverage. There's some research that our organisation did on this sort of thing a long time ago. There's certain assumptions that get made with all science, and one of the issues that I have with a lot of environmentalism is that it kind of defines the environment in a way that humans are alien to it, even though by definition we're also a product of the environment, and our nature as being creative is a product of the environment. We emerged from somewhere, right? But environmentalism defines humans as alien, and then you get this idea of foreign species that also get viewed negatively, to the extent that even though you couldn't really compare brumbies with rabbits or cane toads, right? They essentially get lumped in the same, and then enormous cruelty gets committed in the name of supposedly protecting the environment from them, just because they're regarded as an invasive species. And yeah, there needs to be a more open debate about the assumptions of that kind of ecologism. But in my experience, scientists, ideological scientists, don't like debate. So then you have this kind of political issue we have now.
Yeah, it's and I suppose we're not immune to it. We're not unique. Sorry, we have. You look at it around the world, probably works similar anyway, but it can distort things. I mean, and part of that is the information operation that they do, and that's to pump out a particular narrative, like the one with COVID, safe and effective, but really for many it was sudden and unexpected. Global investors are pouring billions into sustainable farming, forestry and carbon. Industry insiders are divided whether the cash is supporting genuine regenerative projects. I sort of mentioned Peter Andrews, OAM. We had him on yesterday, and Peter, got a bit of a gong for his work in this area, but I can say it, he is not a very happy man, because he's basically still being ignored, and the others are rolling over it. So, what's your thoughts on the cash that they're getting? Because so much cash is coming in, and it's really interesting. Those that are in business, big business, they got a nose for it. They know when there's cash being handed out. And at the moment, they know there's cash being handed out, so they're going to move towards that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, there's all sorts of layers to this, Mike. One of my issues is just the fact that you have, in the global investment community, you have this it's like Monopoly game where countries overseas move funds here, we've moved funds overseas, and you wonder what's the point of that? If these projects are important enough, why can't we invest in them ourselves? Australia has $4 trillion in superannuation. About $1 trillion of that, or close to $1 trillion of that, is already invested overseas. And the Albanese government has an offer to suck up to Trump. They offered another $1 trillion or more to invest in the United States, right? So we're sending money overseas, big international investors in the UK, and for some reason, Canadian pension funds love investing in these sorts of things in Australia. Now, you know, when you just look at it conceptually, you go, okay, yeah, we need to regenerate land, look after the environment, but they're not doing that. That seems to be almost altruistic, right? It's like something you do because you're wealthy enough to do it because you want to care for your environment. Poor countries don't get to care for their environment very much. We do it because we're wealthy. But the money that's coming in, that's seeking a return. This is, you know, there's money to be made out of this, but how? How do you make money? Like, exploiting the land for productive purposes makes money, but how do you make money out of this? And then you realise, okay, well, what they're chasing actually is a government program, various aspects of government programs, including the big one being carbon credits. So, in the name of combating climate change, instead of actually just, you know, looking at climate change, if you know, whatever the issue with climate change is, instead of just saying, okay, the issue here is that we're putting too much carbon in the atmosphere, so let's go with nuclear power and reduce coal that way, etc., or have that debate. They come up with these schemes that actually allow the financial sector to make a profit, supposedly in the name of saving the environment. And I've always rejected. I think it's all bogus. I think carbon trading is essentially a scam. It's based on a model that was invented by Enron, the disgraced American energy trading company that was actually where the people there were actually a pack of crooks, if you remember them, collapsed in 2001, just before 9/11. They sort of invented this kind of emissions trading system, but it's taken over, and so you've got these big funds coming in chasing it. And what they're doing, though, has alarming long-term consequences, because this year, if you think about it this way, the alarm over the consequences of the Iran war has been what happens if the fertilizer, if we can't get enough fertilizer to plant crops, etc., we're going to have food shortages. Right? And it really brings home how delicate our food production system actually is, and it's very important we maintain it and sustain it. These kinds of investments are taking over productive land that is now productive. They're taking it over for the purpose of chasing these carbon trading schemes. And I think that is a real worry for our country, and we should look at it long and hard and come up with a better system.
Yeah, one example of that is the Russia Lagoon, which was Tasmania's largest farm, had 3 dairies and cattle and stuff. It was a very important contributor to Australia's food supply and economy. You know, they employ a lot of people. It's been sold to a British guy or company who are experts in putting in pine plantations. They're going to stop the dairy production, get rid of the cows and other livestock, and put in 2 things: pine plantations and wind farms. Now, you would think when they're looking for tenders and people to buy that property, you'd have half a dozen, maybe a dozen, that they got X amount. Well, the federal government wanted this British guy, to come in and buy that. So they helped stump him up so that his bid was even greater than that of the others. So we were then financing an English or British company to stop beating Australia and put in pine plantations and wind farms. Then after he had the best bid, because the federal government gave him the extra dollars, it had to be adjudicated, and it took 9 times. And for optical purposes only, I'm sure that it took 9 times, because the adjudicator was the very mob that gave him the extra money to win the bid. So therefore, we have, again, talking about what you were talking about, we have an intrusion and a threat to our food supply and our food security, because we've satisfied the ideology of, as one guy calls him, Murray the Toad Watt, beg your pardon, and also Chris Bowen. Of course, Albanese's there, but he's on the phone to Kylie, so he hasn't got much to say at the moment for us. But all these things are falling into their ideological probably wish list or theories on how Australia should be. That itself should be very alarming to media. Truly, I mean, we talk about it a couple of times. There's been a spot here and a spot there on the ABC. There was a minute, 20-second story on a couple of the commercial TV networks, and that's it. We should be up in arms to say, this must not happen. But it's not going to. It's going to just go through. It'll go through, and you'll have your no cows and no cattle and stuff, and you'll have big pine plantation and about 400,000 wind turbines, which, if you read the news, they are killing the birds dramatically in the States. 1 year in one particular part of the US wiped out 23,500 birds. How can we put a stop to it, Robbie? Because this truly is, it's all very well saying put in a new government. The damage is done and you can't go backwards.
Well, you do have to put in a new government, to be honest. Like the ideology, but the Australian people have to think long and hard about this and decide, whether the long-term consequences are acceptable. And if they think through it properly, I think they will come to the conclusion that it's not. But this is one of the reasons I was keen to talk about this subject with you, because the Clean Energy Finance Corporation is, in a sense, close to my heart. Our party, the Citizens Party, has long advocated for Australia to have a development bank, a public development bank again, where the government can lend money for projects that the private sector don't want, because right now our financial system and banking system is dominated by 4 big banks, and all they're interested in is lending mortgages for Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane, because that's the most profitable for them. And so there's a lot of areas of our productive economy that's been starved of credit. And if the banks want to behave that way, that's really dangerous for the economy. But if you've got a government development bank that can actually look at issues to do with, okay, what infrastructure do we need? There's an opportunity here for industries to get started based on certain features which Australia has an advantage in, but the private sector is not going to lend for that, so we'll lend for that and get it started, right? This is the sort of thing a development bank could do. In 2020, Mike, when COVID hit, supply chains collapsed, and predictably, just like we saw this year actually, there was a lot of alarm expressed by politicians. Why don't we manufacture for ourselves? What's happened to our manufacturing? And so our party went on a campaign to get the government to use a development banking facility to actually provide that investment. And when we looked at what the government had at its fingertips, the one institution we saw was the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. Here you've got a $10 billion fund that's there to make government loans to areas of the economy. It's earmarked for clean energy projects, but our argument was it can keep doing those, but expand it. Let's expand the fund into a proper development bank. So instead of being 10 billion, it's over 100 billion. You can get issue bonds so that the superannuation funds can invest in Australia. Australian superannuation funds can invest in it, right? And lend out for the things that we could get manufacturing back in Australia and make us less vulnerable to these global supply chains. And we had a whole campaign about it. I got Bob Catter to try and introduce legislation for it, but the Parliament, the bureaucrats in Parliament would actually not let us put up a bill over that. And it really did teach us that, hang on, the government is not that keen on really having a proper investment facility here. So they've got this little dinky-die $10 billion fund, right? The Clean Energy Finance Corporation. Now we see the sort of thing it can be used for. It is being used to lend to not just one, two British investment funds, Gresham House and Aviva, which are big funds, that presumably they will tell their investors they're making a commercial investment in Australia by buying Rushy Lagoon. But our government fund, which is supposedly earmarked for clean energy, is lending to them to take over productive farmland and turn it into, it'll be productive in a certain way, but if it's prime farmland, to turn it into a pine plantation takes it out of the food production system, right? At a time when we need our food production system. There's always a shortage of food produced in the world. There's a percentage of people that are food insecure because it's mostly not in Australia, but there's definitely a shortage, and you need all the food production that you can get, and we're using this government fund to actually help them do that. So I just think it's completely outrageous, and people need to take a long, hard look at this. Why? So two aspects. Why is our government fund here, our publicly funded fund, subsidising these very wealthy British investment houses to do this, right? That's one part of it. And the other part of it is, why are we allowing productive farmland to be, taken over in this way and put into converted to purposes that's not going to be productive? And where does this sort of thing end? Right? This is not in the spirit of what people thought. I don't think this is in the spirit of what people think our government should be doing with these kinds of initiatives, these kinds of funds, and the public should jack up. As you said, there's been a little bit of reporting, but if there was more reporting, because the media took this thing much more seriously, then you would get a lot more concern, right? And the government would be held much more accountable. But the media are gatekeepers here, and I think they buy into the basic premise of this kind of system because it's all justified by climate change and whatever. Stuff the food supply, right? We've got to stop the temperature rising by 0.1 of a degree in 100 years' time. So take our farmland out of production.
Mm. Yeah, totally agree. 110%. We've run out of time. I thank you very much. If somebody wants to find out more about Robbie Barwick or the Australian Citizens Party, how do they do that?
citizensparty.org.au, Mike, and I'm on a lot of social media. You can just look up variations of @Robbie Barwick, and you'll see me, the one associated with the Citizens Party. Also, we're actually merging into another party. I think I might have mentioned last time. We haven't got the name confirmed yet, so we haven't made the big announcement. But start looking for the name People's Party as well. You'll see that it's emerging quite soon, and I'll be the vice president of it.
Fantastic. Old Presidento one day, but the two I see at this stage, it's pretty good though. Robbie Barwick, thank you so much for
Thanks, Mike.
This is the Country Telegraph.
Conservationist Stephen Nowakowski and academic Tim Navard have mapped over $1.38 trillion in so-called green projects across Australia, including 31,000 wind turbines, 550 million solar panels, and more than 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines, with thousands more running undersea and across protected wilderness. Turbines run only 30 to 40% of the time, panels just 18 to 25%, demanding vast overbuilding and replacement every few decades. Nowakowski calls it hypocrisy of the highest order. Untouched mountain forests now being bulldozed in the name of green energy. After decades documenting the outback, he says he's never seen a threat like this. Dead birds, bats, even endangered species lying beneath the blades.
And welcome back to the land of plenty. Wasn't that in a Men at Work song? Anyway, we soon won't have it if we keep going the way we are, though. We need to ignore the federal, most state governments, in fact all state governments, and throw in a bit of local government into that mix, because we do need to look after this country and take it back from the bureaucrats. Could you just a sidebar here on it? Just think about it. Lacing carrots with 1080, knowing full well the damage it will do to that particular animal and those around it. Just imagine the Think about it, the horror, the pain, the terror that animal goes through. And it's been administered by the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Pack of bastards, that's what you are. Coming after you, we're going to find out everything we can, do it properly. You are on notice along with the ISC and the New South Wales government. You do not do what you're doing and expect the world to turn away. Pack of bastards. Victoria's 56,965 hunters, gun went, shot someone, 56,964 hunters, 452,606 boat licence holders and 245,147 anglers hold enormous political clout at the November 28th state election, with thousands of them sitting in key marginal electorates. Outgoing New South Wales Farmers President Xavier Martin has pleaded with farmers to be on guard and urged them to protect the ability to be their own boss as he passed the baton to his successor, Moree farmer Rebecca Reardon. She's taken over the reins. One of Australia's largest free-range broiler chicken farms, with capacity for almost 100 million birds, has sold to a poultry shed manufacturer in a deal that wasn't poultry, and also to private investors in a deal expected to be worth tens of millions of chickens. More than 3,000 visitors descended on the tiny outback Queensland town of Boulia for Australia's richest camel racing festival, providing a welcome boost to communities recovering from widespread flooding earlier this year. If you want to find out more about what's happening around Australia, make sure you log on to us, either on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and X when we pay our fees. But otherwise, if you missed this show, it's always up there too in the archived sections. This is the Country Telegraph. Now, the results of our poll on Friday, which we broadcast from Cooma with our panel, the question was, do you support Kachana Station's approach to land management, in brackets, which works, this is me putting that in, that utilises wild animals rather than government-imposed culling? All votes were for the answer yes, indicating a unanimous response from all the participants. And it makes sense too. They are doing good, not doing bad. The age groups with responses were mainly in the 40 to 69 range, the highest count in the 60 to 69 age group. In terms of gender, the majority of responses came from females. Geographically, most responses came from New South Wales, followed by Victoria and Western Australia. Coming up next, we will be talking to Peter Andrew, OAM, here on the Country Telegraph.
Covering Climate Now launched in 2019 to standardise climate coverage across mainstream media outlets. It tells newsrooms how climate must be framed, that is, as an emergency, as the dominant story, and as requiring immediate political action. Over 500 media outlets follow its guidance, including Reuters and NBC, CBS, ABC, PBS, Al Jazeera, and the Weather Channel. Editors know in advance which questions are encouraged and which are not, and journalists know which conclusions are acceptable and which will end their career. That is why climate coverage looks identical everywhere. Science advances through doubt, journalism through scrutiny. Covering climate now suppresses both.
Before we get into Peter Andrews, OAM, I just want to, there was a new song out and I've just forgotten what it's called. Let me have a look. I wrote it down last night so I wouldn't forget. If you could just bear with me, I'll just find his name here. Ashen Banner is his name. And he has a song out talking about the Brumby and the Battle of Beersheba, or Beersheba, whichever way you pronounce it, which is, of all things, in Gaza. And famous battle for Australians and New Zealanders. It had the Brumbies, had the horses there, Australian horses. So what I did, I had a bit of a license, created some license, which I'll probably get smacked for, but who cares? I wanted to make the point that these horses they should be respected instead of annihilated and to be rid of forever, as the ISC says. No more horses. Get stuffed, ISC. You're not going to do that. We're not going to let you. The entirety of Australia will come round and say that you are also a pack of bastards, like the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Bastards joined at the hip. But anyway, so we put this together just to show you how important the horse was and still is for Australia. And if you look at the our current military spend, maybe they'll bring them back because we haven't got a whole lot. We have a submarine. We don't have a submarine. We have 2 submarines. No, we haven't got 3. We'll keep the Oberon class because at least they give the enemy a warning that we're coming towards them. And anyway, you see the chuffs of smoke coming from the top at 3 meters below the top of the surface. So I want to play this song, and I want us to say that this is not how we look after our mates. Our mates are those that fought with us in the war, and what they did to what they're doing and they have done to these horses is just tragedy beyond comprehension, and nothing has moved me this much. For those, some are saying that I'm just doing it for whatever reasons. This is purely from the head and the heart. We are tasked with looking after these animals. And the idea of 1080, by the way, 1080 laced carrots. I mean, the National Parks and Wildlife Services should be fired immediately. You don't do that to animals. And the RSPCA, and I will play that later. The audio is from an RSPCA employee. And here we have the RSPCA sitting on their fat Malone. Anyway, we'll play you this track. After this, Peter Andrews will be along, and we'll be talking about some absolutely stunning developments and what he's done with the land. And I have to say, and as we alluded before with Caleb, the bureaucrats in government just want you to hide, go away. They're happy to take the dollars from big donors, and it's just terrible. What are we doing to our country? Anyway, I'll play you this track, come back to you shortly. This is the Country Telegraph.
They carried stockmen. They carried soldiers. They carried legends from Beersheba to the mountains of the high country. The thunder herd still rides. 1,000 shadows cross the dawn, their wild hearts burning through the night. Their blood remembers campfire smoke, long dusty trails and stockmen's hands. The freedom of a younger world still running through this ancient land. Listen, the mountains know their language. Listen, the valleys speak their names. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beershaba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them, no walls can tame them. The spirit of the light horse rides, they are the thunder, and the mountains know their names. Across the burning Sinai sands, they carry fate in steady hands. Through dust and fire they thundered on toward Beershaba's fateful dawn. Horse and rider forged as one, a rolling wave against the guns. The desert shook beneath their stride as Australia rose in pride. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beershaba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them, no walls can tame them. The spirit of the light horse ride, they are the thunder, and the mountains know their name. And standing on the highest ridges, when the world below is gone to sleep, the ancient stallions face the darkness, guarding secrets they still keep. They remember every stockman, every drover, every mountain horseman, every charge, every rider who never came home, every horse who carried him there. Ride on, ride on, ride on. They are the thunder, the heartbeat of the southern land. The wild soul of Australia, the wild soul of Australia. The oath that time has never bent. When lightning crowns the mountain peaks and storm clouds gather dark and wide, the spirits of the old light horse still ride beside their stride. No king commands them, no empire owns them, for freedom runs within their blood, as surely as rivers shape the land. They are the thunder, and they still ride, and they still ride. From Beersheba to the high country, the thunder herd still rides.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. I love the track. We're going to play a lot of it because we do need to respect the Brumbies, because the ideology that the New South Wales government have been pushed into because of the ISC, it's just terrible. You do not do that to our war heroes. Very shortly, we'll talk to Peter Andrews. I want to play this. This will sort of set up this conversation here on the Country Telegraph.
Maloon is coping extremely well with this drought. Despite it being the driest 6 months on record, Maloon Farm is doing a lot better than other properties. The paddocks may look brown at the moment, but underneath the surface, the soil is alive.
If you want to see how to beat the drought, the answer is less than 1 hour from Canberra. Let me tell you the simple miracle of Maloon Creek. There's no water flowing into Maloon from upstream, yet there's water flowing from Maloon downstream.
All we've done is reproduced what was a natural process in Australia's landscapes. We've been able to get water into the floodplains, which sustains the landscape in a drought.
We can fix all this, that's the good news. And we can do it quickly. And we can do things on our farms where we don't have to rely on the rainfall all the time. And we absolutely need this. Otherwise, we will not be able to hand anything but a continually eroding, destroying landscape to the future generations.
The success of Maloon is a testament to a moment in time when two giants of Australian agriculture came together and met. Tony Coote and Peter Andrews are going to go down as giving Australia its greatest gift ever. They've shown farmers not only how to survive during droughts, but how to thrive.
My property, Maloon Creek Natural Farms, is about 6,000 acres between Canberra and the coast. I've had this farm for about 40 years. Over this period of time, we've shifted from conventional agriculture to doing everything totally naturally. I could see that no matter how well you managed your land and how good a farmer you were and whatever methods you used, that you cannot do it unless the land is hydrated. Peter Andrews can look at a landscape like a musician can look at a piece of music. He can read how the water flows and how the whole system works, how to slow it down, how to still the water, how to let it soak into the banks to hydrate the land all around it.
Tony was inclined to say, I want to make a legacy because I believe the world should know about this. And he just put every bit of effort he could into it to achieve that outcome.
Tony Coote approached Peter Andrews when he was in a horrible drought in 2006. But for Pete, this story began decades before, when he realised that there was something fundamentally wrong with the landscape at his Tarwin Park horse stud near Bylong. Peter's passion was always his racehorses and getting them to run as fast as they could, and he realised he needed the perfect original Australian landscape to make that happen.
When Dad purchased Tarwin Park, it was a highly eroded, salinised landscape. He set about repairing the degraded flow lines and making sure that he got the right amount of plants in there that could start to build the system.
Within only a couple of years, Peter turned Tarwin Park into a flourishing, productive and vibrant landscape.
What Peter's natural sequence farming does, it rehydrates the landscape. So put simply, you get the water back in the land like it used to be prior to colonisation.
That's an entree into Peter Andrews, who's known for his pioneering work in landscape regeneration and is the founder of natural sequence farming. Peter has 60 years of evidence that this approach to managing the land of our unique continent is important for Australia's future. First of all, Peter, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
I have to say you are an inspiration, not just to many, many Australians, but to me too. I think what you're doing is absolutely astounding. Can you tell us what actually natural sequence farming is?
Well, it was to recognise that Australia has a blueprint in it. It was developed by plants powered by the sun, and therefore it was pretty basic because it had gone through a cycle of lost rivers. So it was 3 big floodplains that broke away from Antarctic rivers, and therefore it went desert. Obviously, if you take the water away from a floodplain, it soon goes desert. In which case it took a number of years, many years, for the plants to become capable of managing water in such a way that they were able to rebuild the efficiency. And we need to know that a landscape has to be cooler than the sea, otherwise the water heads to the coolest area, and that's over the sea. So in actual fact, it created this system of groundwater management that was so amazingly efficient that water was able to be stored without evaporation, and then it was able to move because the floating cycles of weather and floods would float water to the high points, dump it alongside chains of ponds, and then it would be reprocessed and in a liquid form move through the soil rather than over the surface at the root zone of plants. So it was just two of the most amazingly necessary processes for a landscape to function, and I can see it's never been in the debate, still isn't. And in fact, you know, I try to say to people, if we don't realise that the sun is our only source of energy, and the only way we can make use of it, that's life on land, is through plants. So every plant is important. Because we've drained the land and lost the water, which used to be automatically described as I just said, we were obviously in the cycles of extreme fires, deserts, droughts, or occasionally when the cycles changed, we would get an inflow from the sea, and therefore we'd get a good season for a number of years. Now I've experienced all of those things in 3 vastly different areas. The interiors around Broken Hill, then in the estuarine region near Adelaide, and then in the top of a catchment at in Widden, and so it was amazing to me that the patterns in this landscape could be identified, could be reproduced, because if they were run by plants, they had to have been automatic, and that meant that if I could just get people to understand, then we could all reproduce it. In fact, I got CSIRO to spend quite a few years, 6 or 8 years, and because they didn't identify these simple processes, which are sort of kind of counterintuitive, they just said Byron was unique. So there's nothing happened in terms of, apart from the fact that I had advice that in 1980, that in fact I'd have to give the practical models able to be assessed by the most rigorous scientific processes, and then make it delivered as a good news message. Now I'm hoping that's what this little process does. And in fact, until we've got a regulated government understanding that this is a guaranteed science, the measurable capacity is available everywhere, and there needs to be, as we have for the Reserve Bank and many others, a board who advise the government how this should be implemented, because we've had the problem of 200 years of European beliefs and activities and formation of landscape processes which have failed everywhere humans have used them for the last 10,000 years. Yet in the same period, to prove that it wasn't just a cycle of climate based on the cosmos, Australia was running a megafauna avenue, and so you couldn't maintain the biggest examples of those species unless both the climate and the landscape were able to function continuously. So that was my platform. I said, well, why can't we just get the realisation that the blueprint is there, the ability for people to reproduce it is pretty well certain because it's run by plants and powered by the sun. And that's what I've been doing. And the frustration today is it's never been officially done as far as a proper government-regulated investigation.
Is there any land that can't be improved with your methods?
Well, they're not my method, I keep telling you. I have been able to copy how the ancient landscape worked and then reorganise it using the principles of the ancient landscape rather than trying to just change it as it used to. There's no way that the natural system will be back as it was. We have to just realise that there is a way of managing the same processes and in conjunction with all forms of agriculture. So that's been the platform. It's been quite a soul-destroying effort, actually, to be quite honest. And I'm at a point now where I'm saying I just about, believe that I've wasted a lifetime.
Yeah, I would imagine dealing with with governments, whether it's local, state, or federal, would be would drive you to a big glass of scotch every night. Would have been very, very daunting. And having dealt with government, it's very daunting. Why? Can I just ask you, why is it daunting with government, whether it's local, state, or federal? Because they should be in this particular continent. They should be, as we would say in the classics, Peter, they should be all over you like a rash, and they're not.
Well, I want to report I had a Prime Minister's brother, Sam McMahon, Billy's brother, and he was able to go to the best brains in the world because Billy spent $500 million on consultants. And so he came back to me and he said, "You've got no chance of getting this up," because I said, "I can't understand it. I've been at it for 6 years and not even the neighbours are that keen to get started, you see." And he said, because, and this figures, and it's changed a bit in the meantime because progress is made in terms of technical abilities and an opportunity, that 80% of the world has an unnatural business. That means that when you talk about something that you think is natural, they would reject it and be able to then advertise any of the people who are in a unnatural business that is some sort of threat. And of course that's been the game, and now people are making a fortune out of the problem, and therefore the solution, which would be self-generating, isn't even considered.
It's incredible and very frustrating, I would well imagine. These changes, to implement the changes, and by the way, like health, you can't beat what is natural, some other nature, but these changes, what sort of time period are we looking at to implement them before seeing considerable success?
It's a very difficult question to answer, but I went to a most degraded area which was near Bungonia. It was the first sort of settlement where people were known to come in from the coast in 1813. And of course, I thought if I could watch it rebuild itself, then I wouldn't be able to answer that question and then demonstrate it as well. So that's virtually what's happened. What can be done, in 5 months you can get a shift to the new direction you want to go, but you have to have raw material to bring in, like biological products, particularly, things like human waste. But then it has to be processed by a huge range of plants to get rid of pathogens and all the other problems that we get mixed with it. But once that's done, there is a full range of plants, and there was no issue in the natural environment where plants were taken out to solve a problem. It was always, it added more and more plants until the problem was solved. What I've been able to demonstrate, and what I was able to be aware of from the time in the various areas, everywhere all plants were involved, grass was the dominant outcome. So it was pretty simple to say, because I often go to farmer meetings and saying, who's a mulch farmer? And you'll see the odd woman sort of shuffling around, and you say, well, Are you mulch? Yes, I am. What is your worst weed? And she'd go, I said, what about grass? Yes, it's grass. Why don't you get these farmers to understand how you do that, because they can't get it to grow. But see, the more plants we take out, the less chance you've got of getting grass to dominate. That's a simple takeaway message.
If you were, say if you were Prime Minister for a week, because it would take more than a day, and you were tasked in I suppose, educating, implementing natural sequence farming, how would you do it? Because I'm from the land, and my dad, bless his soul, he was pretty pig-headed, to say the least. Which is a common thread, isn't it? But yeah, once you can convince a farmer, because they, if you stuff it up, they're not going to make a living, so they're very, very careful. But once you convince a farmer that this is what is required, especially in this country, the world would be your oyster. Not the world, Australia would be your oyster. How do we convince that this is the way to go? And there's other forms. I often talk to other farmers, and I say, isn't it interesting, for example, with fertiliser and stuff, how we've gone the full gamut, and that we actually need to look after the planet a lot more than we are. But it doesn't mean that we have to jump into the climate change boat by any stretch. How would you convince Australians, especially in the rural sector, this is the way to go?
Well, the first thing that's been overlooked to everyone I talk to, the hydrology, the movement of water through the soil, and therefore, once you want to transition to this, you have to understand that management of water is your single issue, because the plants automatically took 500 million years to actually manage the water in such a way that Australia was able to operate. Now we've disrupted all that completely, so we have to manage water. And in a transitional process, you would actually add fertility, manage water, and particularly the growth cycles of whatever plants were there, making sure that they were being recycled through the area that you were targeting for agriculture. See, what we've been doing is using stimulants like chemical agriculture to cause the plants to use more reserves out of the soil than previously was naturally occurring. And that means we've run the soil right out of its life. And then it just washes away like sugar. And I've got examples of that, sitting where anyone could measure it. It's not at all complex, it's not at all hard to understand. We have the technical abilities today to measure almost everything, as you would know. And therefore there's no reason why these things can't be done, and can't be done professionally. And to answer your question, it's a matter of turning the sun's energy into product and learning how to recycle it without getting it washed back to the sea. That's it.
There's a lot of talk at the moment, which we're caught up in, and I'm very, very enthusiastic about stopping the culling of the brumbies at the moment. Can large animals be a great help in conservation and land?
They can, but we have to understand that I've used horses all the time in the land recovery process. They are the ultimate environmental vandals, particularly thoroughbred horses, because they actually use a lot more energy. And it was my reason for keeping them around as the barometers that if you can't solve their problem, which is what they create in terms of overusing the energy. See, they're warm-blooded and they run around a lot, they have to grow. All of that is energy, whether we like it or not, and it's all come from the sun, irrespective of how long. It was in the soil, manufactured by plants over millions of years, and then it moves with hydrology from the high point down. And we had the situation before Aborigines where rainforests were on most ridges, And the rainforests, of course, are the most biodiverse unit, and that means that we call them a rainforest because they could make their own rain. They watered, added so much heat to the water that it expanded so much and stayed within the 5,000 metre barrier in the atmosphere. But when it cooled off in the day, that shrinkage brought the water back into a rainforest, and the people without other technical knowledge said it started to rain even though the clouds weren't there. But it was the water in the atmosphere that was able to do that. But then there was any rain event would wash the 7% of productivity that is material that the plants discharge all the time, and so do you, and so does every living thing, down, and that would maintain grasslands. But you see, once we take the high points out, the thing starts to decompose and then gets more and more extreme. And of course, the hotter it gets, the less water will form on the land. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, I've been talking about islands that still have plenty of vegetation, and people are saying, yes, and you can see them as you fly over or whatever. There's the island and there's a patch of cloud over the top of it. But when you fly over any land that's not well managed by plants, the clouds are over the sea, not over the land. So it's a pretty simple series. It's something we just can't deny.
Yeah, I have a. I think with science these days, science is quite manipulated by an opinion or a ideology, and it's funny what you can do with figures and facts, which are not facts or figures. They're just a distortion of reality. If somebody said to you, "What is your greatest achievement?" and the next question they said, "Oh, and what is your greatest frustration?" Can you tell me what they would be?
Well, the first thing was reading and understanding the pattern that this landscape contains. That's something that I was doing since I was about 7 years old, so I have an ability to see things that a lot of other people don't. And then my most frustrating issue is I can't see it going anywhere, and I've raised a family who have got the capacity to make this work worldwide, actually. And I can see it being a disaster as my life's been. I can almost say there's 70 years of wasted effort at this time, unless we get this up.
Yeah, it's funny, as I get older, I get a little more emotional, and I don't know what it is, whether I'm just getting older, and I start to see see the frustrations, and I can see your frustration. I can tell you, Peter, that your 70 years have not been wasted at all. And
I'm afraid they will.
No, we need to make sure it's not, because what you're doing is absolutely correct. And it's funny how the on the land or the rural sector, it is slowly changing. And I think we just got to, I mean, may take a bit longer, Peter, but
Look, I'll give you an awakening that I had. When I was just 3.5 years old, we had a dry period at Broken Hill, very hot in October, and the mines had burnt all the trees on the land that we had. We had 60,000 acres and it was just treeless, and 40,000 acres of it. And the heat that came off that land caused a thermal storm that in 3 hours wiped out every vegetation that we had, including leaves off trees. That there was a gum creek that had gum trees along it. Everything disappeared in 3.5 hours. And so what we don't realise is it self-destructs once we take it to the point where the sun's energy isn't being managed.
Can I ask you, because you've been recognised for your efforts by the government, and there is evidence to prove you're right, who is stopping progress?
Greed and self-interest, pretty much.
We have a lot of that.
No, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
No, we have a lot of that greed and self-interest. It seems to be, unfortunately, it always has been, but it seems to be a lot more prevalent these days. I hope I can prove you wrong, Peter. I hope we can make a lot more progress. Who knows? But we should.
It's a simple walk in the park if, in fact, we decided to do it. And I believe if the government was to say, let's run a moratorium, let's appoint 3 people to go out and examine the evidence, because the environment and climate must be examined as how long has it been operating, over what area has it been consistently able to function, and at what levels are we able to reproduce it. As soon as those things were done, this would change. And the transitional period might take a few years, of course. It's not going to happen overnight, but it would happen. And the fact is that I believe even this year, we could double our biological asset with just 30% of the people managing land involved in their most fundamental issues. And some of the things we don't seem to recognise is if we burn the raw material, it goes off in gas. Normally it was recycled. So the first thing to learn how to prevent fires and to manage the recycling. That would change our biological asset probably by 100% in 1 year. Unfortunately, I had it valued over the period of the last 50 years. It started off at 380 billion and then it went to $1 trillion. It means in a raw material way, we have increased the asset to the public of $1 trillion. It doesn't make
Can one more final question, because I do talk a lot, I've been told. Is bureaucracy and academia still against you?
No. Against is a different word in this context. It's commercial interest, basically. And the fact is that, you know, we are selling, or they are being sold, to farmers, a product called paraquat, which is banned in 70 countries, able to affect your brain seriously, and manufactured by China, who don't use it. So we are just victims of being gullible enough to let big populations who would love to see this landscape in their control run us down a path where we're too stupid to realise what's happening.
Paraquat, what a dreadful drug. Look at the glyphosates in Roundup. I mean, it's just, anyway, there's another conversation you and I could have, but I will never let you get home. I have to say thank you very much for your time. It's just been absolutely brilliant. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Peter, how do they do that?
Well, there is a website, and I do hope to get it. It's been managed poorly because I actually don't use it, simply because it's easy for people to interfere with all of this electrical process, and it would drive me crazy if I didn't know, because I haven't had the same experience, that it wasn't my fault that that thing wasn't working, or it was somebody manipulating it out of my control. So for one reason, I want to stick to the truths that I know exist, the truths that I know I can identify and guarantee, and let the other processes be managed by people more familiar with it.
Peter Andrews, OAM, agriculture pioneer, a great author. It's been a privilege speaking with you, Peter, and I thank you so much. And thank you for I believe it took you some time to get to this location to do the conversation. I would like to extend the invitation to perhaps do more, and maybe one day we could pop out and bring our cameras and sit down, and we could do a much more in-depth and a longer conversation on these topics if you're up for it. And let me tell you, I do talk a lot, but I also would bring you a beer. That could be lovely.
The biggest thing is just to take it, because there is a thing that Bob Hawke got put through. There's a duty of care that every person employed by the government or under the taxpayers' money has to take into account. If he doesn't, it's a criminal offence. And then there's another one, if you're spending money under the same system, it's what they call a fiduciary duty for breach. that is also a criminal offence. Now, the fact is that this is at a point where I can't do it, but it could happen any time soon, that people start pushing this level. So the smartest thing a government can do, say, we've been misinformed, let's make sure we check the authenticity of whatever's about. And this whole landscape will guarantee them. It's nothing to do with me and natural sequence farming. It's to do with the ancient landscape and its blueprint, because it's definitely there, definitely able to be measured and understood.
Peter Andrews, OAM, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
There's around 17,000 level crossings around Australia, many of these on country roads like the one behind me here. They have no lights or boom gates.
We are saying this needs to change, and we want mandatory legislation introduced to ensure that all trains have safety lighting. This issue affects all Australians, and we know that people that are from metropolitan areas are at greater risk of a crash with a train because they're expecting full controls in place that they're just not going to get in regional areas where these level crossings are protected only by signage.
In Australia, there's strict lighting requirements for trucks, buses, cars, even bicycles. But when it comes to Australia's biggest land vehicle, trains, there are no mandatory standards in place, and this anomaly really needs to be corrected.
When approaching a railway level crossing, especially those without lights or boom gates, drivers must exercise caution and must always check that it is safe to cross. But a driver can't give way to a train they can't see.
The rail industry is very profitable, powerful and protected. We have a unique situation where the Rail Industry Safety and Standards Board is owned and controlled by rail operators. So they have the power to put commercial interests before public safety.
By law, trucks must have marker lights that clearly show their full length, width and height from every angle, day or night. If a truck doesn't meet these lighting rules, it can't legally be on the road. If it's good enough for trucks, it's good enough for trains.
If those changes had been made back then, we would still have our family members today. Instead, we have to watch on while other families go through these completely preventable tragedies. Something as simple, as cheap and affordable as a beacon light could have saved 3 precious, beautiful lives in our particular crash.
Over the years, there's been far too many tragedies at level crossings around Australia. And on behalf of the many families and communities affected, I really do appeal to our government and to industry to support mandatory safety lighting on all trains.
Authorised by law.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Uncle Craig Wilesmith is a respected Ngarigo elder based in Tumbarumba, New South Wales, and fingers crossed we can get there because it's a very important rally on August 1. Now, he's a respected elder based in Tumbarumba in New South Wales. As a custodian of Ngarigo culture and country, he actively works to preserve, educate and share the rich Indigenous heritage of the Snowy Mountains region. Alongside other Ngarigo elders, Uncle Craig has spoken out against the Brumby cull and the need for consultation with traditional custodians for better management of the Brumbies and the park. First of all, Uncle Craig, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, and I have to apologise. A thousand beers, or whatever. We've had so many technical disruptions of the last few weeks. It's just been driving us to despair. But under that, we are doing our best to do a great service to this cull, and the lack of respect that has been shown, which is just enormous. How disappointing is the cull and the lack of respect to you at the moment?
Well, look, it's devastating to the Ngarigo people at the lack of consultation, the lack of communication with us as the traditional custodians of the land. It's like we don't exist. Now, we've sent letters, we've had meetings, we've done all of the above, and we've had no response. They're just totally ignoring us. It's not only the national parks, it's Snowy Hydro as well. So it seems to be the practice is to communicate with as many mobs as possible, and any mob that jumps on board and gives the right answer, well, they run with them. But that's not culture. That's not the way it works. The thing is, if you ask somebody that knows, they will have the right answer, not the person that has the same opinion as you. It is not the right answer.
How do we fix it?
It's not a difficult question. Most problems can be fixed through communication. We need to talk. The government needs to come to the table and just have a yarn. It's not difficult. We have alternative methods of managing the horses. Now, what you've got to remember is we are the TOs, the traditional custodians of the land. So they should be talking with us anyway, but they're not. But that's okay. We can sort that problem out. So the big thing is if we can all come around the table and have a talk, we can do it a lot cheaper, a lot more efficiently, and a lot more humane than what they're actually doing now.
Why have the horses been demonised so much? For example, Richard Swain is one that comes to mind.
Yeah, look, that's a really hard question. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think they're a big animal. You can see them quite easily, so they're there and people look at them. Why they're being demonised by people like Richard Swain, which is not even Ngarigo, it just amazes me how everyone's happy to have an opinion on this and push it or push their own agenda and not collaborate with the Ngarigo people. It's just mind-blowing.
I'm just intrigued with the Brumbies that they're destroying the environment. They're just terrible monsters, blah, 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 goes on like that. And if they have the next cull, there'll be very few left, if any, which is what they want to do. The ISC has said all along that they want to get rid of every horse in every national park. The statement that the horses are terrible for the environment is just, as we would say in the classics, Uncle Craig, is pure BS, isn't it?
It is pure BS. They keep the fuel load down, and if we can manage their numbers to a manageable occupation of the park, they'll do more good than harm. They're not the demon that they're made out to be. Rabbits are probably doing more damage, and the biggest problem in national parks are people. The state government is using national parks as a cash cow. So they charge us $29 a day to take our vehicle in there. They charge Snowy Hydro a fortune just to be there. They rent them land which their structures are actually on every year. They charge the ski areas and all those people there money, and they're using it to generate an income. And the latest I've heard, they're going to try to develop a push bike track in the national park as well. So they're a bit touchy about getting involved with people that may object to the blatant misuse of the country to generate income And because the country's not being looked after, it needs to be managed just a little bit better than what it is at the moment.
And the idea of just exterminating and killing these magnificent creatures who've been there for 200 years. So they are, in fact, probably part of the environment. Someone on Facebook said that perhaps they're getting the imprints from the hoofs with rabbit holes, and I thought that was a slight dig at their lack of intelligence. And we don't have to kill the horses either to maintain the numbers. There are other ways, such as rehoming and fertility exercises and stuff like that. It's a very cruel way to treat a magnificent animal, and it's a very sad way that we as a nation embrace that at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing. It's just horrific in what they're doing. Now, in their own statistics, they're averaging 7.5 bullets per horse. That was the last aerial cull. Now, people say, how do you get half a bullet? That's fairly easy. 7 bullets used on one horse, and then you have 8 used on the next. You divide it and you get 7.5. Now, a horse is a big animal. So just by shooting it in the rump and in the guts and through the ribs and all that sort of stuff will not bring that horse down. Yeah, you get lucky occasionally and you'll get a headshot that will bring the horse down humanely. But the problem is they're such a big animal that they need to be managed properly, and if they do need to be controlled, there are better methods and a lot more humane methods to do it. I was talking to a contractor that moves the horses out of the parks after they're trapped. He has got people lining up at his door to get these horses, and he's being denied that right because the national park prefer to just go shoot them and leave them. Now, where's the common sense in that? There is no common sense.
There's not. The idea of killing the horse, I have a great issue with that. Let's look at the management of the Kosciuszko National Park. I'll say this up front that I think the National Parks and Wildlife Service probably needs a Royal Commission at least into them, and I think they are atrocious at the moment in managing the park, and I'm not the only one that shares those views. What's your views of the management of the Kosciuszko National Park?
Yeah, look, I've spent all my life here in Tumbarumba pretty much, and going up into that park, it used to be my backyard. Now, I can remember being a child where it was fairly pristine. It was good. You could walk around through the bush, you could look at things, you could do that sort of aspect without a problem. Now, you can't walk through the bush because it's that overgrown. All the magnificent mountain ash are dead. Now, those mountain ash would have to be, they'd have to be 200 years old to get that size. So their fire management is extremely weak. They say that they're trying, but no, look, that doesn't tick the box. We need to manage this property better. So in times gone past, on average, the Aboriginal people put a fire through the country about every 5 years. So the regrowth didn't get too thick. The fire didn't get out of control, as it is. If we have a fire now at the moment, it will be it will make 2019 and 20 look like a bit of a picnic, because there is so much regrowth, there is so much fuel up in the bush now. It is scary. It's extremely scary.
Then take the Brumby out of the equation, it will even become scarier, won't it?
It will. It will. Now, when the 2019 and 2020 fires went through, I had a bit of a drive around afterwards, up here in the state forest and areas like that. And anywhere that there was a concentration of brumbies, the fire didn't burn because the grass might have been about 25 mil high and it was green. And the fire got to that edge and it stopped, which was amazing. An area up here around Paddy's River Dam, it burnt all around it, but not around the dam itself, just because of the lack of fuel load. So they're actually helping us out in a way, in certain areas, in controlling fire, they're probably helping us out with weeds as well. The thing is, there's nearly every weed known to man up there now, which is a little bit disappointing. There's rabbits, there's lots of feral animals, which we'll never get rid of. Let's not beat around the bush. We will not get rid of those animals now. They are here to stay, so we've got to manage them. All animals have got to be managed to some extent, because if we don't, they become a problem, and that then becomes a bigger problem if we don't just do some basic management.
Can you tell me, I need you to put on your Sherlock Holmes hat here, how does the ISC, which I refer to them as bridge gluers, and they probably were, 130 members, how do they have so much power?
I really don't know. I think they speak the speak that politicians like to hear. We're a little bit controversial because we don't quite tick that box. We won't jump into bed with anybody, as they will. The Invasive Species Council, well, they're a bit of a worry. They really are. They go off half-cocked with half the information, and that the half the information they've got, they manipulate it to suit their plan. So let's get back to basics and start looking at stuff and doing stuff. And all these experts, now, in my opinion, an expert is a drip under pressure. They need to get back to reality. Talk to the old blokes, or the old people, sorry, not to be sexist. Talk to the old people that went around that country and ask them how things used to be and why we've sort of strayed so far off the track. Now, the old cattlemen, when they used to take the cattle up there, they used to burn on the way out. So that was, what are we looking at, April, May? So they used to light a lot of fires on the way out and control the fuel load. So when they came back next year, there was fresh feed there. The fuel load was a lot less, which made them and their cattle and sheep safer. So where have we gone so wrong? I really don't know. It's because of these groups that call themselves environmentalists. I wish they'd just stand back and have a good, strong look at themselves and just consider what the majority of people are saying and just work with everybody. Don't isolate anybody.
The other disturbing, I mean, again, I'm back at the National Parks and Wildlife Service, and I do believe that they, to me, this is just to me, and we will find out more as time goes on. In fact, we are now looking with some good investigative journalists to find out more and some other ways of finding out. I think they should be finished. I'd get rid of them, even as Angus Taylor said, let the locals get back in there. But the National Parks and Wildlife Service, you are a disgrace, and it will all come out. I can promise you, cross my heart and hope to die. The other thing, speaking of the National Parks and Wildlife Service, they're using 1080 again on carrots. Of course, horses don't like carrots, though they do. But it's a very cruel, very cruel way of eradicating particular breeds. They were using pindone for rabbit control, which horses are relatively resistant to pindone, but 1080, when they eat that, no matter what, whether it's a rabbit or whether it's a horse or dog, whatever, you're going to find that that particular animal, after a couple of hours, is then going to suffer a very slow and painful death. Can you just tell me, Uncle Craig, the reasoning for using 1080?
Look, 1080's been around a long time. It's been a poison of choice. Farmers, I'm not so sure about now, but they could get chicken wings and chicken legs, which was laced with 1080 to help with the fox problem. So the national parks have just continued on using it as a drug of choice or a poison of choice. Now, I've seen an animal die from 1080 poisoning, and no, it's not pleasant. It's not fast. It is absolutely horrific. Just getting back to the national parks, I do think the national parks have a place in the parks, but the thing is, at the moment, they are their own law. They are just running around doing what they want without a lot of scrutiny, and they are being very arrogant at the moment with their staff, which showed about pulling people up on the road and doing stuff and arguing and ordering them off country where they do not have jurisdiction is, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. They need a reality check. They really do. They just need a reality check. They need to get back to basics, look after country, look after Mother Earth, and just start listening to a few alternatives rather than putting the blinkers on and just charging ahead as if there are no consequences. Well, look, I'm sorry, there are consequences. And that day of reckoning is getting closer and closer every day.
Yeah. I think they're a very disappointing organisation, and they should be doing a lot better. Another one I want to ask you, now this is just, I don't know how much how qualified you are in law, but it was reported that one of our guests came across 4 shooters, and they were dressed in uniforms, as in military uniforms. They also were carrying these very powerful weapons with silencers. Now, can you recollect anything in your time on this planet? I can't. That a silencer is a legal part of a weapon. Silencers are used for bad things. I mean, I know in the States, if you're caught with a silencer, even though they have loose gun laws there, if you're caught with a silencer, you go to jail, don't pass go. How could they allow, and these are National Parks and Wildlife Service shooters, I believe, or shooters employed by them, how could they be allowed to have a silencer?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm hoping they're using a 308 or a calibre bigger than that. So it's actually not a silencer, it's just a suppressor. It still makes a noise, it still goes bang, but it's probably only half as bad. And that's probably to mask that gun sound so they could sneak up and shoot other horses. Yeah, look, that's a difficult one. I really don't have a lot of problem with a silencer or a suppressor. It's like equipment. It's like rope climbing. You need good rope. You need the latest technology to do that. And the thing is, the horses have got to be managed. They really do. But to do it properly, they need to come back to the table.
They do. They need to get a little more humanity involved. I mean, humane. I mean, we often say that's inhumane, and sometimes you become a little bit resistant to the severity of that term. But we do need to be a lot more humane. We need to show respect. There are other ways, and you would think in this day and age, Uncle Craig, that in this day and age, that we could do something else than having a perpetual killing season.
Yeah, look, I agree. There is no reason why any horse should be shot in the Kosciuszko National Park. There is not a need for it. Oh, look, if you're trapping or if you're what we call running brumbies and using that method of capture, you will get rogue stallions that'll try to, bite you, and they are dangerous. And they may have to be euthanized purely because of safety aspect. But other than that, there should not be a horse in the national park that is shot. They should all be trapped and removed and rehomed and used because they're a fairly diverse animal, the old Brumby, and especially up there. They have got some very good lines and some very good breeding in them. They can be trained to do almost anything. And once you break them in and work with them, they are very good. Now, I had a grey from Kosciuszko. I got my hands on a grey through a friend, and it was about 18 months old when I got it, and I broke that horse in, and it was one of the best ponies that I've ever ridden, one of the most sure-footed horses that I've ever ridden. They are marvellous on their feet. He had good feet. I didn't have to worry about that. So let's have a think about it. Let's use these horses in a positive way rather than just shooting them and leave them there for dogs and crows and foxes and cats and all these other feral animals to get a free feed and then breed and accumulate number.
Yeah, I agree. It is truly, we've in a past life we covered many things. Russia v Ukraine and the China and the Gaza conflict with Israel and the Middle East, all those sort of things. This one I've taken a great interest in it. We have here taken a great interest because, one, it doesn't make any sense. It shows an enormous amount of a lack of respect. We're talking about squillions of dollars. If you look at Snowy 2 and the renewables and blah, blah goes on, you're talking about not billions, but almost trillions of dollars. And my dad once said that when there's a lot of money involved, and he was a detective, you can almost smell the stench of corruption in some way. Now, I'm not saying that any of these parties are corrupt, but there's an enormous amount of money and everything seems to be choreographed, and it just doesn't make any sense. Uncle Craig, if somebody wanted to, first, before we get into that bit, let's talk about August 1. We are hoping to be there to broadcast from there. If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. But tell us about, because these rallies are all over Australia. Tell us about why you think the general population should attend these rallies.
First of all, and if you're sort of in the air, maybe a positive or a negative, or what, you're just undecided, go to these rallies and get a little bit of information. It'll help you make up your mind. These rallies aren't a negative rally; they're a positive rally in trying to help the horses. They'll be full of information. They'll have people there that will talk and give different aspects of everything. And it's just a good opportunity for people to get a better understanding of what's going on and the atrocities of which are being inflicted on the horses. So, they'll be non-confrontational. And it's just an opportunity for people of an interest to get together. But please, I encourage everybody to go. Ask questions. Ask somebody a question. If you've got a question, why is A, B, C, or D happening? I'm positive that there will be somebody at these rallies that can answer that question. So use it as an opportunity to gain knowledge and a different perspective maybe. Or, if you've got a perspective why the horses should be removed, let's have a yarn. Let's have a talk. I'm sure that we can have a talk as human beings, non-aggressively, and just work out, a difference of opinion. That's what we do.
Actually, that's not what we do anymore. We have, you have a larger organisation becoming bullies, and I think we are becoming a nation of bullies and other activities also, which I'm not all that keen about. You're very prominent in the local community. If somebody wanted to find out more about you, though, that aren't in that community, would like to find out more about what you do and maybe have a conversation with you about respect and having respect of land, how would they do that? How would they get in contact with you, Uncle Craig?
Well, they can jump on NNIC's webpage and they can do it there. They can contact me personally if they wish. But, with work commitments and stuff like that, I may not be available all the time. Or you can contact a gentleman called Jason Fieldhouse. Now, he's very switched on and very knowledgeable. He can forward the contact across, and I will contact you, I promise you. And we can have a yarn and we can have a discussion and see if we can sort of, if I can help you out, I'd really love to help you out.
You have been absolutely brilliant, very patient, so I appreciate that, but some things are just completely out of our control, but we eventually get there, a bit like the Australia Postal Service. You will eventually get it, eventually. Thank you very much for your time. I have great respect for what you're doing, and I admire you enormously. Thank you very much, Uncle Craig. And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Enjoyed Uncle Craig very much. What a wise man he is. Now, you will notice we have the QR code up, and there's a question there. In what areas do you think the government interferes the most? To put your vote in, which you should. You have a say in your thoughts. We have some talking in the background. So just use the QR code on our screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. Now you have 24 hours to vote before the result is broadcast on the Country Telegraph after 8 a.m. tomorrow. The link will also be published on our Facebook page. Now share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. This is the Country Telegraph. One of our guests, who I admire enormously, is doing a lot of good for those Brumbies, is Ross Tregonning. He's been on the land and has had horses for over 60 years. Ross organised a recent rally in Albury to raise awareness about the Brumby cull amongst ordinary Australians. Now, more rallies are planned for the 1st of August. First of all, Ross, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mike, and I can't thank you and the Country Telegraph enough for what you're doing for the Brumbies.
It's our pleasure, and I think that's what we have to do. We have that opportunity, and we care about Australia, we care about those Brumbies, we care about the Kosciuszko National Park, as with other parks. Personally, I think the New South Wales Parks and Wildlife Services are a disgrace, and we will go into that more in the ensuing weeks. But I thank you, sir, for your time. And I thank all those, even though there's sometimes a bit of a conflict between groups, you all have the same aim, that is to stop this cull, stop the killing, permanently stop it, and look at other humane ways of looking after these magnificent animals. And I played a song probably about an hour ago, a bit over an hour ago, which talked about the Battle of Beersheba. And it's a brand new song out, absolutely fantastic. But I mixed it with some footage from a movie about that actual battle, and showed you that those horses, the descendants of the ones now, and they are still linked by DNA, those horses, they fought with us. And we need to make sure that we look after them. We don't turn our backs on our mates. That's the Australian attitude that we should have. And hopefully we can ring some bells in people's ears between the left and the right ear, and make them understand that we need to do the right thing here, and we have to. And so it's our pleasure and our job to do so. Tell me about the rally in Albury, first of all. How did that go?
Oh, look, Margie and I, we thought it went really well. We only had about... Anyway, things got changed on a Friday. Our location was changed. Anyway, yeah, other than that, we had over 100 people there, 14 people with horses as well. People from Albury come down, and it was a really, really great success. There were people in the park that actually didn't know what was going on up in Kosciuszko, and that was the whole idea of the rally, it was an awareness rally, and people come up and could not believe what was going on. And there was one woman there, she singled me out, and only saw it on Facebook the day of the rally, and brought her two young children down that had read the Silver Brumby books and loved the Brumbies, etc., etc. And she was just shocked at how we're treating these animals. Anyway, I asked her, would the girls like a ride on my Brumby, and she could not believe it. You know, she said this will be the highlight of their life. And anyway, I gave them both a ride, and yeah, she couldn't thank me enough. And that's what I mean. Like, they're an iconic animal, and like you just said, the Battle of Bathsheba. You know, what they did there was just incredible against all odds, and you know, the soldiers and the horses showed extreme courage, and you know, yeah, got the water wells back for the people, and overtook the enemy.
Mm.
You know, we owe where we are today to these horses, that's for sure, Mike. And you know, these rallies that are going on, we've got to maintain our heritage and the iconic status of the Brumbies. You can't have them on coins and stamps and all that sort of thing, and then turn around and just shoot them. That, you know, it's just wrong. It's just disgraceful.
It is wrong, and it's un-Australian. And what we're trying to do here at the Country Telegraph is to actually is to try and bring back part of that. I mean, I used to live on the land. My next guest will say I've probably failed miserably because my hands, look at those hands, they're perfect. But I still have that in me, and I think the bushy, those in the rural areas, generally, you know, you call a spade and a shovel. And you may have a disagreement, may have a bit of a biffo, but you get on with life and generally catch up for a beer until your footy side plays the other one, and then you get back into it again, a bit of a biffo. But I think that's where the bush, and I truly mean the bush, is in many ways detached from the city, which is just detached from reality. So we've got to sort of cross that. You mentioned that at the Albury rally that they weren't aware of it. That would indicate that the legacy media and a lot of independent media are not pushing the cause to save these magnificent creatures.
Yes, yep, that's for sure, Mike. I was extremely disappointed with the local newspaper there. I won't mention their name, but they interviewed me the day of the rally and took photos, etc. They probably spoke to me for 10 minutes, and out of that 10 minutes, they wrote 2 paragraphs, and the rest of the story was all about the invasive species and Jack Goff and what damage the Brumbies are doing. And, you know, that was just so wrong. It was, yeah, like I like to be fair and impartial, but that was the other way. And the same with the local television. They approached me and asked for an interview, and I said, yes, I certainly will do an interview on the rally as long as you show this footage and video of the people at the rally. And I never heard back from them. So, you know, there's your answer to being sort of, I think, a little bit one-sided.
It is very one-sided, but you, in the press, of course, the free media too. They've actually, I don't know if it wasn't free media. I'll have to ask Anna about that one too. You get plenty of questions from me, but I'm just thinking there was a story about how the federal government pays the media a sizable chunk, you know, from Channel 9 to I think it's about 20 million. And you got other smaller ones like Crikey and Michael West Media, also are being paid by the federal government, who do audits to make sure that they're doing the job that they're being paid to do, which throws into some sort of question about the objectivity and the truthfulness of that particular organisation, only because they're being paid by the federal government to act as a propaganda arm in some ways or another. And part of that is, if you look at the New South Wales government, joined at the hip with Chris Bowen and Murray Toad Watt, you would see that the pressure that they're putting on legacy media, back to your point, is that, and independent media, is that they don't want stories out about the Brumbies. They want them all gone. and Jack Goff's ISC, they've been quoted as saying, we want to get rid of all the horses. What's your views on that, the idea of getting rid of all the horses? But first of all, killing them is barbaric anyway. But they've been there for 200 years. They're as much a part of the environment as anything else is.
Exactly. I've got a quote here from Sir David Attenborough. May I use it?
You may.
Yeah. And this is his quote. I think sometimes we need to take a step back and just remember we have no greater right to be here than any other animal. And that sums it up in a nutshell. And the governments, they're playing God. They want zero number of brumbies in the park, and they're just marching on like those bulldozers building the Hydro 2, eliminating them at will. And, the aerial culling was just barbaric. Now they've got people on the ground shooting them. They're just marching on. And I like I said earlier, I've had horses for a long, long time, bred a lot of horses. And in that time, I think the hardest thing about having horses is when you wean them and you see the bond between the mare and the foal and you're taking that away. It's very hard to watch, but it's got to be done. Now, the next cull's going to take place in November, and there'll be mares with foals at foot, and they will shoot these mares, and the foals will just die a slow, painful death because they need that milk from the lactating mother. They won't be getting it. The foal will be standing there waiting for mum to get up, but she won't be getting up. That's just cruel. And these are the things that need to be shown to the public, and I don't know how we can get our voice out and pictures of all this sort of stuff, Mike. I really don't. It's just...
I think we have to roll up our sleeves, Ross, and we have to get the message out. We've played a spot before, and we'll play it again later, in regards to 1080 used by the National Parks and Wildlife Service to get rid of the rabbits. First of all, 1080 to an animal, it's a terrible, terrible death. But it can destroy the environment or other living beings, such as, let's say, anything that eats that rabbit, such as a bird or hawk or whatever. The brumbies will also be eating those carrots laced with 1080. And so that's a truly hugely cruel way of first of all, killing an animal. But secondly, the brumbies do not deserve to be killed. And thirdly, the proposed cull in November, I don't know how we're going to do it, but I can promise you that we're going to give it one hell of a shot to stop it. And I think the way to do it is to let the people know, as you did in Albury, let them know about these atrocities committed against horses that don't deserve it, basically. There's an event which you're going to at Tumbarumba on August 1. Other events around Australia also to coordinate it. We're trying to get there. I just got back, but we're trying to get there because I think it's important. But tell us about that event.
It's a continuation of awareness, but it's going to be held in different states simultaneously. I think Victoria are running 3 or 4 rallies in different places. There's one at Tumbarumba, there's a couple other places in New South, even Queensland, and it's all going to happen simultaneously. And we're just trying to really get that message out, and the more people know about it, the better. I think one of the main ones in Melbourne was going to be held at the Shrine of the Botanical Gardens, but I think they've knocked that on the head, so I'll have to find another venue for that. This is what needs to happen. We could have a rally nearly every week, I think. But they've picked the 1st of August because it's the horse's birthday down here in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's a great starting point, or not starting point, but a continuation of our awareness to get the message out to people of what's going on. And hopefully we get a lot of people up at Tumbarumba. Angus Taylor, yeah, you're invited. It's your area. Yeah, as many high-profile people as we could get would be better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to have more of these and bigger ones. I'm just a bit miffed at why they would knock it on the head at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne. I mean, I think if you, and I could be wrong here, but I think there are statues of soldiers on horses, and that would indicate that there is a comradeship between the horse and the soldier, and together they were a good fighting unit. If somebody wants to find out more about the rally in Tumbarumba or the other rallies, or about yourself, how do they do that?
There's plenty of information on Facebook. They can either contact me or Noel Marks is the organiser of the one at Tumbarumba, and he come down to Albury with his wife and their horses. Yeah, he's another person to be contacted. But there's plenty of information on Facebook, Save the Brumby pages and things like that. So yeah, if anyone wishes to hop on Facebook and just punch in Brumbies, yeah, I'm sure there'll be information come up. Just saying about the rally at the Shrine, like this is really the Anzac spirit, Mike. It's fighting against all odds, and we've got to win. We've got to win. That's it.
If you look at Victoria, the Bogong High Plains, there are no horses. And I mentioned Goff, Jack. He's learnt well from I think Andrew Cox was the guy that started the ISC, and what an abhorrent organisation they are. They do not represent me. They don't represent most Australians. They should just go, as we would say, go to buggery. But that's being a bit blunt. So maybe if they could take a long walk on a short pier. Ross Trigoni, thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
It's pretty disturbing to be on the back of a horse riding through a national park and just coming across carnage. That's what we're here for, but certainly families and tourists don't want to be seeing that. Shame on you.
My heart grows quiet as bullets ring. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Casio.
Oh my God, there's more.
Before the mountains call me home. Tell them I was born here. My grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my fool I tried to save them. Tell the wind how Brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Anna Powell is a mother, agricultural family business owner, educator and independent candidate for the federal electorate of Maranoa in Queensland. Our topic today is, hallelujah, brother, the second coming of Carl, according to the book of Pauline. Anna, thank you for joining us.
Hi Mike, how are you?
Good. The second, I like that. The second coming of Carl, according to the Book of Pauline. Tell me, are they related or just joined at the hip because of sport?
I don't know, to be honest. I have no idea. I called it media concentration and Karl Stepanovic.
Yeah. It's but it's amazing how they've pumped him up as the new voice of freedom. He's a bit late, isn't he?
He is late to the party. In my research for this, do you mind if I read out a
Please
quote
do.
from his when he mainstream media? So he said, I remember after about the second injection, meaning the COVID injection, and I'd had it like 2 or 3 times. I was thinking, God, what are we doing this for? And then I started to think about the messaging that was coming out. I was starting to think about the government ads that were on the station. I don't think media should be involved in messaging. I am legitimately sorry for pushing the COVID vaccines. Someone in comments from where I got this from said, too little too late, Carl. A family member had a stroke from the first injection and medical profession did everything to deflect and deny. So, yes, it is very interesting. Also, according to the Australia Institute, 20 to 21, the government spent $610 million on advertising, which a lot of was COVID advertising, and these went to establishment media outlets. So, independent media, don't think so.
Yeah, I'm also, if you look at government, because government do control what is said, and you know that, I know that, but we have...
well, I think it's been increasingly so over the last
since
probably
COVID,
20 years.
Since COVID?
So, well, no, according to the Australian Institute, I think it was 2019, it was actually higher than COVID. So, but collectively, I would think that now between political parties and every level of government, they'd be the major advertisers in Australia, or press and just do endless press releases, which is controlling the narrative, which is what we learn in school and university is what China and Russia do. I call it sneaky authoritarianism.
And very sneaky indeed. But if you look
that we fund it because that's what our dollars that are being spent.
But if you look at even just recently the article that came out about the federal government paying 67 or close to 70 million to, which in this day and age, when you talk about media, it's not a whole lot, but they give about 20 million to Channel 9 and Channel 7 get a big chunk. Then you see Crikey. I mean, anyway, they get money.
I've got it in front of me. So Fairfax Media Limited, which is owned by Nine Entertainment, plus Nine Entertainment, you're right, that's $20 million. And obviously on top of that, they have the corporate and big business funding. So you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
You don't, do you? And but look at it. But I was even surprised that Michael West Media on the government payroll. And the thing is, Anna, they have the government says that they basically audit these organisations to make sure that they're doing basically what they want.
Yes, and this isn't just media, Mike. This is everywhere, and this is one of my massive problems with grants that are sold, A, to control people, and B, to control the flow of information, but also to control people, because once you take the government money and step out of line, there's a whole lot of KPIs often attached now, so they can catch you out, and people know it, so they self-censor. And also, I think we should be shareholders in every single thing. If the government are giving, at all levels, are giving money, and this is happening at council, state and federal level, our money, then why aren't we all shareholders in these companies?
Well, we are, I suppose, but we're not.
But we're not, because we're not getting any return from it. We're an economist, a Libertarian Party guy, told me that $3.70 has to be got back from every dollar the government spends. So we're not benefiting at all from this, but we're funding it. And I can tell you, as someone who doesn't take government money, we are now paying the price for this in inflation and taxation, fees, fines, compliance. And
If
I
you look
refuse
at
to take the government money because it just makes things worse.
Mm.
And I try and explain it to people. It's a very hard thing to sell because people have been conditioned over probably 20, 30 years that what the government is spending is free or cheap because they now control the narrative as well. So it's very hard to get the message out that that's not true. I did tell a beautiful young couple on the walking path in Brisbane this morning about inflation though, and they were really surprised. They had no idea why they're being taxed so much more at every level until I nicely explained it to them.
If you look at, just quickly on the grant thing, if you look at how they want it, how if they go back against the trend of the government's wishes, then the grant is, they won't get the second one, won't get the first one probably. Peter Ridd, Professor Peter Ridd, up at the who was studying the Great Barrier Reef, he had a contrary view and backed it up with science, and they went after him, and basically he got no more grants, and the people that were proving or trying to prove what the government was saying, that the reef is dead meat, they got their grants. So still haven't proven it at all because it's not dead meat. Peter was right. How do we how do we become? You can't stop it, but how do we become aware of the porkies that are coming out of those who are receiving grants? And not all of them are coming out with porkies, but a great chunk of them are.
Look, it's just, I think it's awareness, which is why I personally keep talking about inflation and taxation, because, as I said, it's not reported properly. As Carl, I would argue that Carl, as soon as Carl said that, what I quoted at the beginning, that was his death knell. Because basically in COVID, Peter Costello was chair of the board of Nine Entertainment. So in my opinion, and it's quite an educated one, and I watch very closely what all these people are doing, he was making damn sure that no one was reporting properly on COVID. And I did say to a journalist back then who worked for Nine Entertainment, so do you know what not to say since Peter Costello's on the board? And I got the look. And the thing is, you know, people talk about lying, but there's also lying by omission. So people generally, to keep their job, I would argue that they know what not to write. So when something like Chemist Warehouse is one of your biggest advertisers, which it is for Nine Entertainment, and the AFR did a article on Chemist Warehouse now having a $600 million in-house publicity machine. So maybe they can write one article like that, but if they kept going and did a deep dive into Chemist Warehouse, I don't think Chemist Warehouse bosses are going to be on the phone to Nine executives saying, hey, put your journo in, mate. You know, we're paying millions for this sponsoring the NRL, and you're going to lose that money.
Tell me, back to Pauline and Carl, I actually believe, I mean, first of all, we had Channel 9 who, we're not working with him anymore. He spoke to Tommy Robinson, so what? But anyway, it was Channel 9 that boosted him in the first place. He had makeup and cameras and that sort of stuff, and he was part of a Channel 9 project, almost a Channel 9 production, but not. It does make you wonder if Channel 9, who were the ones that pushed him first of all, and then they said we've broken up, it sort of makes you wonder where the truth actually lies. I mean, Carl does have great sway.
Well, I listened to some of Carl's podcasts to get the vibe. Well, look, I think there's different genres, and I think Carl's genre is appealing to people who, you know, like that more casual approach to media, chatty approach. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good genre. But you can't speak the truth if your advertisers own you or the government owns you. You just can't do it. So Carl might. I actually think Carl does regret what he said in COVID, and I think he's trying to redeem himself. But the trouble is he's sticking with the same formula. He's taken a right-wing position, so he's immediately lost 50% of an audience straight up, which is why, I mean, I'm completely apolitical. Politics ruins everything. If we want good policy, we just need to get the politics out of it, which is why I'm running an independent campaign that is completely devoid of ideology and left, right, any green politics, because you do not get the best policy when people are running an agenda. As I keep saying, the only job a politician is supposed to have is to represent their region and what their region want on average for Australia and the region, and that's all they're supposed to do. But we're being sold the left-right illusion of choice lie, which we have to accept other people's agendas, which is not democratic. So I think Carl's learning a lesson here, and I listened to a few, and I do think he feels bad about it, but he's taking advertisers, so I'm watching with interest to see who's dropping off the more he goes right of centre. Like, a lot of brands don't want to be associated with that because it's sort of not the narrative at the moment. So I noticed one business dropped off very quickly, and I know where they're located and I know what their politics would be. So this is a problem. He's going to find himself between a rock and a hard place. He's not getting his paycheck anymore. He might be getting a paycheck. He's obviously got funders. He's got Ringers Western, Ned's App, Tanda, Chevy, Wayfair. One of them's a gambling app. So what is he going to be able to speak about gambling and the effects on the population of gambling? No, because they're going to pull out.
Yeah, it's funny, a guy called Glenn, and I've got his, bugger, it's just gone. Glenn so-and-so, anyway, from the US, he, I forgot his name. Jen, if you're watching, just send me Glenn someone, white-haired guy. Anyway, he has this large network, and the network, it was relying on advertising, and about 3 years ago, Glenn Beck, that's it. And he had to drop the advertising because they were doing what you just said. They were demanding that these stories weren't covered, and they couldn't really do a business platform because of that. So they went to subscriptions, which is still hard, but at least if you do simple math, you have $1 million by, say, $20 a month, you're going to get 20 million. So you can at least do some good math.
Well, the problem is now, and I've analysed this for a long time, and established media and those outside the so-called establishment media, and the subscription formula is difficult because, like, someone like me that follows 10, 20 people from around the world to be paying 20 subscriptions, and it's very hard to harness that market. And in my analysis, I think you do need advertisers, but you need advertisers that don't want to control a narrative. And at the end of the day, most big business and big corporates want to control a narrative because they've got a product to push and they've got profits to make and shareholders to keep happy. So yeah, it's a challenging one. I had to laugh when I was doing my research on this because Ringers Western, which is a clothing brand, are sponsoring Penrith Panthers this year. And someone gets on the chat, because they're also done some sponsorship with Carl, and someone gets on the chat and goes, Ringers Western, well, look into their history, that family, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at the other sponsors for the Penrith Panthers, which are Picklebet. So young males have gambling, like gambling particularly. Some get addicted. Well, Picklebet, okay, Tui's, beer, KFC, Red Bull, which children drink and is known to cause heart problems. And also, as someone who's brought up 3 children through the education system and is a qualified high school teacher, I've seen the effects of these energy drinks on children. It is disgusting. Coke, Jindabyne. So I think Ringers Western is the least of their problems when it comes to being ethical.
I don't think ethics has got a whole lot to do with it.
No, it doesn't. But it's just funny how, like, this smaller company, sort of because they have supported Carl Stefanovic, they're now getting a bit of heat, and someone picks on them, and they fail that these international corporates are literally quite happy to sell Coke to children. Energy drinks, which are caffeine and sugar together, which is like the double whammy. And look, I am not Miss Nanny. I'm just about awareness and people being aware of what they're ingesting and what it does to them. I'm not into banning everything. So, yeah, but I just find it interesting to watch.
It is very interesting. Now, well, I know you're busy, and we have another guest about to come up. If somebody wants to find out more about you and how to lead a healthier life, how do they do that?
Well, there's no silver bullet for health, Mike, and that's, as you know, the corporates keep selling silver bullets that don't work, which is why we're in a world of pain health-wise. So I lead by example, and there's no silver bullet for health. So you need to exercise, you need to eat well, you need to limit the technology, don't let the technology control us. And if you want to find me, I do a lot of things, but I am Anna Power on Facebook, and Vote 1 Anna Power for Maranoa on Facebook as well. I love feedback. I believe in free speech, so jump on, and if you've got better evidence than me or more information to add, I'm always happy to hear it.
And I have to say, the set behind you looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm in Brisbane at my mum's.
I was being cheeky. Anna, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk again probably next week. Anna Power, thank you very much. This is the Country Telegraph.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively went and rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that, he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So, yeah, sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. That voice you hear in the background, the last bit we put in, is from someone on that video was at least working with the RSPCA. If you see what's happening in the Kosciuszko State, or Kosciuszko National Park, with the National Parks Wildlife and Services, what they call themselves, forgotten, they're dropping carrots laced with 1080 to kill the rabbits. First of all, that's terrible. The animal will suffer. Horses will eat it. Birds will eat for example, the bodies of the rabbits. They will then all die a very painful death. If they go to the water, which we were told earlier by Caleb, that they head down to the stream because it's excessive dehydration. They go down for a drink and they die in the stream. They also then will poison the stream. National Parks and Wildlife Services, just a pack of bastards. That's it. Can't say any more than that. Should be ashamed of yourself. You're not Australian. Just a pack of bastards. The salinity and acidity story, degradation you can see. Our guest is David Lewis Mackay, co-founder and director of Smart Soil. Thank you for joining us, David. Just quickly on 1080. Terrible, terrible poison, isn't it?
Terrible, Mike. Yeah, like you say, the fact that they're still using it is just, obviously, it's crazy. But, it just doesn't surprise me. Again, it's a product, a regulated product. Some would say someone's making some cheddar in the background there, no doubt, as always. And as long as there's an incentive there and someone making money, I imagine they're going to keep using it. So
yep, it's just it's a shocker to say the least. You think we'd start to learn? I mean, even with paraquat and glyphosates out of Roundup, you think we would start to learn? We'd say, hang on, 70 countries have banned basically Roundup because of the glyphosate, which causes cancer and all sorts of things, and we're still doing it. Oh, we've got new controls over it. Nah, you spray it on. If you lay on it or touch it or whatever, you have a chance of getting a terrible, terrible disease. And we still do it, don't we?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And beyond that, I mean, it's a water-soluble toxin. People believe that once they've sprayed it on the plant, that's it. It's finished, and you don't see it anymore. But that is totally incorrect. It travels into the water, gets into the water supply, evaporates off the land, gets into the clouds, it's in the rain. So even if you're out on an organic farm and you think you're doing the right thing, and as an organic farmer, you can't even escape it because now the rain's got bloody glyphosate in it, and God knows what else. I don't think most of the shit we've been spraying on the land has even made it into the aquifers yet. So God forbid. I don't think we've seen the worst of it. I don't want to be a doomer. But because I'm very hopeful, I mean, we work with farmers that have stopped using these chemicals and that are still profitable and that are producing healthier, more nutritious food and leaving the landscape in a better shape. So I just think that this is a hill I will die on, and I will keep singing this from the rooftops until there's real change, and I know you will too. So it's just great to have a platform to get this really important message out, because it's not just the people that exist right now that it's going to affect, and all the animals and the nature, but it's actually, there's been studies that show it's linked to epigenetic mutations down the line. So I think it's something about the third generation of mice that were exposed to their ancestors were exposed to glyphosate. I think it was about the third generation. These mice were having all sorts of health ailments, autism, freaking allergies, blah, 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 you name it, all this terrible stuff, cancer, and we still keep using it. So, yeah, back to the 1080 stuff, I just think we need to have a good hard look at what we're doing to this beautiful country that we love, and start making some changes.
And first of all, get rid of the RSPCA. They're a terrible organisation. What a bunch of, I won't swear, but what a bunch of ants they are. Bunch of, I can probably say it because the children are at school. What a bunch of piss ants they are. But they're terrible.
It's funny, isn't it? Because, I mean, initially they were, going into bat for humane outcomes for animals. And I think that is how they gained a lot of their trust in the public. And then as things unfold and they become bigger and they start needing more funding, and the cycle just continues and repeats, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden their incentives are no longer aligned with what they people thought that they were even about to start with. So piss ants a good way to describe them, I reckon.
It's a terrible. I'll go to hell for that one. Tell me, why is salinity and acidity creeping across Australia farmland? I probably know the answer if you look at the guests we've been having on, but just tell us in plain Aussie lingo.
Right on. Yeah, so essentially once you remove the amount of vegetation that we have and we start interrupting and disrupting that small water cycle and then the large water cycle, the soil function, the water table starts to rise because there's no longer the deep tree roots there to sort of pump and cycle that water. The salinity starts to rise and you then get salinity and acidity, and it grows and grows as the practice doesn't change. What is really exciting to me is that I've seen with my own eyes farms that are battling this salinity and controlling salinity, even reversing salinity, producing crops right alongside saline areas, and actually making that saline area retreat just through using regenerative agriculture methods, getting lots of diverse plant roots into the ground, pumping sugars into the soil, waking that soil up, and they're reversing the salinity. So I'm really excited that there is a solution that we can, and I know that you had Peter Andrews on the show, and what better a man to talk about salinity and water, because his life's work and what he's achieved on some properties around this country, and his understanding of landscape function is just incredible. And now his son Stuart Andrews, who now runs Talwyn Park Training and natural sequence farming training courses all around the country. I was lucky enough to do one 18 months ago, and it really just clicked a lot of things in my head about how this landscape functions, because it is quite unique, the Australian landscape, and I think a lot of our politicians should have to do that course, to be honest.
But a lot of the politicians, I probably bet you 10 cents to nothing, haven't been out to the bush except for maybe a quick fly in and a fly out just to do the obligatory waving. How do I do it? Hang on. Like that. Do you do it? Hello. No, she's dead. Sorry. I can't do Charles's yet, but it still does that. Hello, hello, look at my ears. Tell me, can degraded country be brought back, or is some of it just gone forever?
Absolutely, it can be brought back, Mike. And that is the mission that we're on, is to help bring back as much country as possible, not just in Australia, but all around the world, because this isn't a problem that is localised just to Australia. I mean, I don't know how much you want to cling to UN statistics, probably not at all, but, they say we have 60 harvests left globally. The land is degrading, especially in Mediterranean, more arid regions, as it degrades quicker. And so, the fact that we can actually, there's methods available that we can recover that land and turn it into productive land again, and produce a crop from it, or food or fibre or fuel from this land that is turning into wasteland unmanaged. And that's just the thing, I think, with these animals. I know we're going to touch on Kachana today, whether we have time, in that you had Chris on the show the other day. But what I think is really exciting about these farmers that are working in this arid, brittle environments is that using animals, using cover cropping and pasture cropping, and just a bunch of these regenerative methods together are recovering this land and returning function to this land. And this is some of the most brittle country, so imagine what we could do in the better country. I just think that is so exciting. And then the fact that we want to let dogma and bureaucracy get in the way, and then potentially reverse the amazing progress that people like Chris have had using animals in a unique way, is just mortifying.
Yeah, and it's Chris is doing, we spoke to him, we're going to follow this up with a lot more. He's actually brought back the land, he's brought it back to life. And the donkeys, people go, bloody animals, but these, you look at, for example, in the Kosciuszko National Park, The environmental damage that the ISC is claiming is just bunkum. It's not right at all. In fact, what they do is they help life. And if you look at the donkeys with Chris, these donkeys have turned around the entire, the degradation of the soil, and it is so much further in front. But then you have government, pig-headed government. What they do is say, we can't have this. It makes us look like we're telling lies. Let's shoot the donkeys. Let's kill the donkeys. Let's kill the horses, and therefore we win. It's a pretty hard fight, isn't it?
Oh, mate, isn't it just remarkable that that's our only solution that we can come up with is just get in a helicopter and shoot these animals? I mean, it's just disgusting. I think, it is, what Chris has done is absolutely incredible and should be celebrated and researched by every researcher on the planet, because that is a blueprint to recover large amounts. I mean, even if we, like I've said on the show before, if we were to implement what Chris is doing over, just some of these massive hundreds of thousands of acres, millions of acres of rangeland that is similar to Chris's in Kachana, we could totally change this continent. So, I think it's bananas that we're doing that. And one thing I think it is really important to highlight there, Mike, is it's not the donkeys on their own accord that are having that result. It is actually the management of these animals that is achieving that result. So the problem isn't the animal, the problem is the management. So if we could find a way to manage these feral animals across the landscape, we could potentially have a massive workforce of animals out there impacting the landscape positively and regenerating land on a massive scale. And I was just thinking about this morning before I got on here, because I was like, well, what is a unique take on this? And I think that with the technology that's coming out now, say like the Gallagher e-collars that they're putting on cows, and the Halter technology, which is essentially enabling farmers to manage livestock without fences. So imagine if we were to capture these animals, these feral animals on the landscape, fit a collar on them, and then we could manage their movements across the landscape, so we're allowing adequate periods of rest so the landscape could recover, and we could essentially do what Chris is doing over all this unmanaged land that it's desertifying and turning to dust. I just saw that. There we go. Let's get behind that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the idea of a killing season, a perpetual killing season, which is almost 12 months of the year anyway, we've gone past that. There are alternatives that are much more humane and are more beneficial than knocking the poor animal on the head. And I think it's just terrible. I think the governments, I think the organisations that are getting their beaks involved, I think they're doing so much damage, and they're hurting Australia. And I think they probably know they're doing that. As for those that enjoy killing the animals, I truly think you should go and visit a psychiatrist, quick smart, because how the hell would you get enjoyment out of killing an animal, especially a beautiful donkey or a horse? It's just terrible. Anyway, they do. Takes all kinds to make up this world. They're not one part I like at all, and I think they can go get stuffed. I won't say anything rude. David, we've got to wrap it up, only because we have run out of time. If somebody wants to find out more about your company, how do they do that?
No problem. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for the show again. smartsoiledu.com.au. All over socials, YouTube. You can find us there. So
fantastic. And quickly, did your football team win last week?
Negative. No, it didn't.
Who were they?
Well, are you talking AFL or
AFL? It's only one game.
Yeah, okay.
AFL.
No. I'm an Eagles supporter, so
you got beaten. Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
But just not good enough. I think one day, because I do recall you won a number of grand finals, and I have never forgiven you for any of those. But I think one day, I think you got a very good coach, and I think the club's very strong, and I think it will come out of it. As long as you don't beat my side, which is St Kilda, and we have trouble winning at this stage. We buy all the players, and they get injured. It's great. A new tactic there.
They're terrible. Awesome, Mike. Well, good luck with the rest of the season. I hope it turns around for you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much, David Lewis Mackay. Thank you so much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph. That's it for me. I'm going to pack up and go home. I'm going to go out with my usual song. I'm going to play you a community service announcement on what we should be doing to look after our friends, our mates, those that looked after us. We need to look after the Brumby. As for those that are initiating the killing, the swell is growing, and we all of us want it to stop permanently. There is no excuse killing these beautiful horses. I do not forgive you. I'm not going to ever stop doing what I can, because this is something that is atrocious, and it is simply not how Australians should act. So go get stuffed. I thought I'd throw that bit in. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Be kind to your neighbours, be kind to yourself, and drive carefully, something like that. This is the Country Telegraph.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mirror I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoofprints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now. Shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home again and again. My heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my fool I tried to save them. Tell the wind how brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind